Here's a quick look into today's episode.
The level of competitiveness and accountability and kind of desire to continue to be great, not just from each individual player, but entire groups of people, like the captains that then instill upon brand new players, just saying, hey, this is how we do things here. And there is an expectation that this is how you're going to handle kind of what this is going to happen. And yes, we don't want to be the one that breaks the streak. It has nothing to do with just rolling the balls out and winning games. It has everything to do with this is the process for how we do things. And that process is going to be what leads to victories. Like we talk about feeling failure. You have to be able to feel failure in other aspects, because if you don't feel failure while you're practicing, or you don't feel failure while you're doing other things that aren't as important as the thing that actually matters, then when it actually matters and you're not used to it, it'll eat you up. I don't have to make people feel failure in the state championship game, because the second you drop a ball or the second you don't do the right thing, you're going to feel it from everywhere. It's not going to be from me. So we actually try to create, kind of make people feel failure in practice in games that don't matter. Because when games do matter, you have to feel that failure and still be able to answer. What's the secret? And the reality is it's not really that big of a secret. If you do all the ordinary things consistently really well, then that's how you achieve greatness. It's not about doing the really big things and the really flashy things. Just do the little things all the time correctly. You'll realize at the end of the day is that you're just in a really good place. And I don't think that that's probably not special to flag football. I think that's probably true of anything. You don't have to be spectacular and flashy and think big. Just think small and do small things really well, better than everybody else. And then you're going to end up being better than everybody else. You need to be 100% committed, even if you aren't 100% available. We don't need you to be at every practice, but man, when you're here, I need you to be locked in, and I need you to want to be. You can have your other sports, you can do the other things, but I need you to be all in as it relates to flag football when you can be. Let's play in flag football is the 7-yard hitch. Throw and catch a 7-yard hitch better than everybody else, and you're going to be fine. We run 7-yard hitches certainly more than any other team. And it is boring. It is, a lot of this is going to be boring, but it's not boring winning state championships. As annoying as it may be, I think the right answer is you're not walking past the mistake. Whatever the mistake is, whatever you're constantly correcting and just saying, we're not going to lower this standard just because you didn't come in with the discipline that's required to be here, but you're going to get to the discipline that's required to be here. And then it's exploded to now, then D3 started offering, and then D2s, and now they're up to I think there's 12 to 15 Division I schools that are now offering it, including a Power 4 school in Nebraska, and they're offering scholarships, like every bit of legitimate scholarships. There are many kids that are either paying a reduced rate or literally going for free because they have a full ride to play flag football, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then there's just constant talk about who's next, what's the next school that's going to add, and then conferences. The Big 12 has announced that they expect to add flag football as a sport in the Big 12 with at least 6 schools. The SEC is monitoring it. The ACC is looking at it. And there's a coaching void kind of in the country when you start something because you create all these teams, but you don't have all these people that have coached. Then there's a quarterback problem. You started 100 teams, but nobody has played quarterback, and now all of a sudden you need 100 quarterbacks. All the games of football are predicated on how good is your quarterback. I don't care whether you're playing Pee-wee football with little 7 and 8-year-old boys, whether you're playing girls flag football at the high school and college level, or whether you're playing NFL professional football with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You gotta have a quarterback. But then the third part is there's a referee problem, because now you've created this game, you've added all these teams, now you've taken these referees that have then said, okay, cool, I've never refereed this before ever. And here's the rule book. Okay, they're used to tackle football, so then they're kind of seeing all that contact, and it's been okay. And so it does not surprise me one bit that you see all this potential illegal contact that's happening with no penalties, the blocking issues with no penalties. I think in all the scenarios, I think finding a way to get over the top for all these people that are starting flag football, to find a way to get coaching and quarterbacks and referees all on the same page and trying to get that as an opportunity. In our summer stuff, we are going to catch footballs and pull flags. That's what we're going to do. 90% of our summer is going to be around those two things, because you can design all the plays and route concepts you want, and you can have all the ideas in your mind about how you're going to play defense and how you're going to, what you're going to do and how you're going to impact. But if you don't catch the football, and you don't pull flags, you aren't going to win. That's the secret sauce. Do that better than everybody else, and that's not that big of a secret. I don't think anybody ever rises to the occasion. I don't think that exists. I think you always sink to the level of your training. So in moments of adversity, people don't step up. I don't think that exists. I think you always revert back to what you know.
Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership, and not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people.
What is up?
Coach, how are you?
I'm great.
You look good.
Thanks. You told me that this was going to be like super easy, no problem. And you sent me like a 37-page thing. I was like, what is happening? Yeah. We had a captain's meeting, and I'm like, I got to go do this podcast. This is what he told me. They're like, oh my God. It was a little bit of a concern.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, we're going to be great.
I learned early on when I did an episode with a chaplain Charlie Shields, and he said, if you don't give, the pastor like a script, Lord only knows what's going to happen. Yeah.
No,
and
funny.
so like when I said I could just tell Josh and Coach, hey, we're gonna have a conversation about flag and Robinson culture and everything like that, and it'll go on for 2.5 hours.
It will. This is not good. I don't know what you have planned for the rest of the day, but it's going to be a lot of this. So.
Well, oh my goodness. It's good to see your face. I see it a ton, on the social media. We're all the way here in Hawaii. You're back in there in Tampa. It brings back such good memories every time I see you guys, and, just seeing the videos, just like not even like 2 weeks ago of you guys winning another championship. And I remember walking up and down those sidelines. I remember seeing you on the sideline and that whole team. It just brought back so many good memories.
I know it was great. This one was a little bit different, but yeah, I see you're rocking the hat too. So there you go. I like it.
Somebody gave me that hat. You pulled it out of your car. I think I was walking down. It was like 4th or 5th game or something like that. And you looked at me and said, "Why do you not have a Robinson hat yet?"
There you go.
And I said, like, if only I knew the guy that had those. And you walked over to the car and pulled one out and gave it to me.
It's weird. They don't have as many as they don't make the hats anymore, really. Like Nike doesn't. So you have to it's a lot more work to kind of get them. So it makes it a little tougher.
It's a lot more.
A little tougher.
Yeah. I wonder what Nike would say. I can see your Under Armour shirt.
So
what do they think about that?
It's weird because I kind of tell people Robinson Flag is Nike. I don't work for Nike. I'm not sponsored by Nike. So I think I got a little wiggle room, but when we're Robinson Flag and we're at Robinson Flag practice, I'm pretty over the top about wearing Nike stuff. And I figured this was a little better because it was USA. So it's a US national team shirt. So it's all good.
Oh my goodness. I got so many stories that I want to share, and you just said Nike, and me and Christy were out on a walk yesterday and we were talking about it, and I said, you remember when we showed up to Tampa and we landed in Tampa, it was a big storm, and we're sleeping on the pool furniture in our rental place. We had no household goods, we had nothing. And Ryan had to show up and go to volleyball practice. And so she did have her volleyball stuff. And we raced into the gym. I think it was day 2. And she was at volleyball practice, and we saw you. And you said, do you play flag football to Ryan? And she said, no, sir. And you said, you do now. And
nice.
And she said, oh shit. And we had to go to the store. So we went to the store, and she's like, I have to get cleats. I have to get black shorts. And we went to the store and bought cleats. And the next day she showed up and they were Adidas cleats. And you called her over and you said, come here. What are you wearing? And she's like, cleats. And you said, come over here. And you took her to the office where there was Nike cleats.
We just had to get her fitted. What year did you guys get here?
Oh shoot. What was COVID-19? So I think it was
20. COVID was 20. We shut everything down in 20.
So we got there 21, 22. We were there. Those
Okay.
were the two
Yeah.
years that we were there with you.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Yeah. No, we were firmly entrenched in we had just gotten we got the Nike deal. First year for Nike was COVID year, was 20. So then, yeah, if it was 21, we'd have been like, yeah, we got to get you hooked up.
Can't get
Yeah.
can't get caught. I can't get caught with
No,
you out on the practice field wearing
I,
that.
tomorrow, tomorrow's first day of practice for this year. And I'm sure I'm going to have kids that are out there and something else that I'm going to be like, here, take these. We have so many cleats now. They give us 50 pairs of cleats a year. And then sometimes we use them, don't use them. Some kids use the same pair of cleats the following year because they're just broken
Yeah.
in. And so we end up with some extra pair of cleats for sure. So if anybody ever needs them, just let me know. We'll still hook them up.
Yeah. It's amazing. There's so many things that I want to talk about today and like share with people. And, selfishly, I'll like get an update and like hear from some of these things. Cause what I think for our audience is like, I think there's so much, parable between what we do in the Army and what I've watched you do out there with Robinson flag football and vice versa. Like you always, like everybody in sports always talks about going to war. Like we're going to go to war, we're going to go to battle, we're going to go to battle together. And then in the Army, everybody always says it's fourth quarter. We got to give it a second half now. We got to make some adjustments going into the second half. We use so many football, similarities, run the ball down their throat. Is the things that we say so much in the Army. And when I did an episode like this with Scott Brown at Vanderbilt, he talked about how Coach Corbin had created a culture and how the recruiting and how when you choose the right people, it's so similar to like what we do here in the military. And I think it's so similar to what all great organizations, when you look at them, they have these similar cultures.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think that's probably correct across the board. It doesn't matter whether you're coaching a flag football team or the Army or running a business. I would think surrounding yourself with really good people and not just the people that are on, I'll use an Army reference, like not just the people that are on the front lines, but really the people that are kind of everywhere, the people that are around the organization. It's not necessarily the people you're going to see all the time. So for us, that's the players. That's obviously we want them to be good and we want them to be good people, but getting the administration and getting kind of teachers that help you out and obviously the parent group and everything that's around you, including all of the coaches and having everybody kind of push in that same direction and have that same idea of what matters and what the program can be and will be, I think is probably super important. And that's probably true of in every scenario across all types of levels of business or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And both of us have now, seen I've seen the Army, you've seen this grow and, you've seen the ups and the downs and you have enough kind of track record. You have enough things to be able to say, I can make an assessment at this point. The things that I wanted to kind of, the direction I kind of wanted to bucket the conversation today is I'm going to want to start off with like, what's on your mind right now? Like what is right on your mind? I already know what it is, but I want to hear it from you because secretly you texted me like the day after the state championship and you said, I'm thinking about you today. I'm sitting here by myself watching film the day after the state championship game and no days off is like coming up in my mind. Yeah. And so I kind of want to start off with what is most on your mind. Then I'm going to want to go into, what you want people to feel when they hear, Josh Saunders, you, and then like what you like flag football, Robinson flag kind of. Then I want to talk about like how you kind of created that, why you created it, what a little bit, go back in time a little bit to those first couple years and then into today. What are some of like the principles and values? And I love the phrases that you come up with every year, for like, what's this year going to be about the little things, those things, doing it right, the standard. Then I want to go into like the relationships that you have and how important that has been. The people, the coaches, the coaching staffs, the other parents that you still have, like I still get your emails that give us an update on Robinson. I love those emails. And so I hope you still see my responses. I hope it doesn't I hope I still warrant a response. Then like the future of flag and some of the things you're doing right now with Team USA and that. and then we'll kind of wrap up with so what, like what have we forgotten about, or what is it? How does that sound for a good roadmap?
I was going to say, it sounds like we'll be done in like 10 minutes. No, I mean, it sounds great. Sounds great. If I get off topic, just give me back to where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach. I really appreciate it. I learned so much just like watching you operate, watching you, listening to you, going to those meetings with you. I learned at a young age with the kids, which was if you really want to see how your kids are doing in sports, you need to go to practice. You can't, it's not at the games, but if you just show up to the game, you're going to be like, why is my kid playing this position? Why are they not playing enough? Why is it going like this? But when you go to practice, you hear coach saying, you need to move this way. You need to go that way. We're going to need you at this position for this reason. You hear the things, you watch the things. And I loved going to those practices and secretly running laps around, your practices to watch how you did it. Because again, I think it was so comparable to what we do in the military and how we try to build those cultures. Anyway, I digress. What's on your mind right now? What's going through Josh Saunders' mind right now?
It's a lot. It's always a lot. I was telling somebody that, I don't know that it used to operate this, but I think 90% of my kind of life revolves kind of around flag football, or 90% of my conversations. It's probably too high. It's probably, that's probably not the right balance that I should have, but I think that's kind of where I live. So for us, like right now, we are 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out of the state championship game. I guess, yeah, it's been 3 weeks now. 3 weeks out of the state championship game. And like I told you, we didn't play particularly well, especially on defense in that last game. So that was my concern day after. Like we were trying to figure out what was going wrong and what happened. And just because we won the final 42-34, and that 34 points was the most points we've ever given up in the history of the program in 21 years, not in any regular game, in any game ever. We had 33 used to be the record. Now it was 34. So we just had some fundamental things that just weren't in a very good spot. So I had to watch kind of what that was, because you kind of got to start, we weren't going to implement anything, but I was going to start processing and trying to figure out kind of, what that happened, and whether it was personnel or scheme or just bad dumb luck or whatever that situation was. So then, like kind of right after that, we had Team USA stuff. So I kind of bounced to that. And then now I've been back from there for a couple of weeks, and we have a big Team USA event coming up in 2 weeks, Junior International Cup in LA. So it's kind of the 17U national team's biggest event. So we're playing 7 other countries. And so that's kind of there, but it kind of sits it's not on the back burner, but it's not directly in my face like it will be 2 weeks from now. What is directly in my face right now is the start of the summer starts tomorrow. So getting paperwork cleared, getting people ready to go. And I think flag football, at least for us in Florida, is a little different because the season goes right up. And if you're fortunate enough to play all the games like we are, you kind of go and you finish 2 weeks before the school year ends. And whereas if you were in a different sport, like a winter sport, you would have 3 months where you could maybe kind of power down and you wouldn't start, what the next chapter looks like. But for us, we're going to start right away in the summer. And so for that's tomorrow. And the reason that we do that, and I think I probably told you this, and hopefully it benefited Ryan and Evan both quite a bit, was we want our kids to show up in the summer, especially those freshmen. And because when they show up in the summer, it's going to be awkward for them. It's going to be weird. But what it will do is when that awkward first day of school happens, then when they walk down the hallway, they're going to know seniors and juniors and sophomores. They're going to know IB kids and traditional kids. They're going to know military kids and non-military kids. They're going to have a group of 40 people that they are connected with already. They're going to already have gear. So when they're walking down the hallway and they don't know where their classroom is, and they spot that senior captain that they now have been to have ice cream with, and they've done cool things with, and they've been over to somebody's house because of the team bonding, they're going to be able to look at that kid and be like, hey, where's room B209? How do I get there? And that kid's just going to help them. And so there's a comfort level in that first weeks of school for freshmen if they're already involved in something before it ever starts. And so that's the reason we are pretty adamant about starting. There's a flag football reason as well. We want to make sure that they get in. We want to make sure that they are loving the sport before some other coach grabs them and tries to convince them that they can only play, volleyball and they're not allowed to do anything else. And so we try to make sure that we kind of get that first touch point for Robinson is us. And because if that first touch point for Robinson is us for an incoming freshman, then I think they're going to feel pretty good about their decision to attend Robinson.
Yeah, I every time I hear you talking about this, I try to say all the time with our organization, you can tell everything about an organization by how they welcome their new people and how they say goodbye and how they thank their people when they leave the organization and how you welcome them. I'm going to be picking up the new commander that's going to take over for me. I'm going to pick him up from the Honolulu airport with his family here tomorrow. What's going to be today? Put a lay on them, get them to the hotel, help them get figured out, like where are they going to live? How are you going to get your car from the port? Moving to Hawaii is no picnic.
No,
even though it's tropical paradise, it's often the toughest move that anybody will do in the military is to move to Hawaii because everything has to get shipped and stuff. When you talked about like getting welcomed, we found out about Robinson in Hawaii when I found out I was going to go to Tampa to go to SOCOM. The Van Antwerps came up to us, and Taylor came and stopped and spoke to me and Christy for probably 30 minutes in the road. And she's like, the first thing you got to do before you do anything else is you got to get in with the flag football team. We're like, well, how come? And for all the reasons you just explained, get in there as soon as you land, go find the football, get in with volleyball, get in with the football coach, get in with Coach Saunders, and they will kind of help you get into Robinson as a high school, not just as a football team, as a high school, and help you kind of, they do a really good job of welcoming, military families that got to come there for 2 years and kind of just become part of the team. And then 2 years later, you're out, just like Ryan, for her senior year and now here to Hawaii.
And then we want them to be really sad when they have to leave. Like we are looking for them to be over the top sad about going. So it's, because we don't, just like anytime if you have to leave family, that's not great. And so we try to kind of create that atmosphere as best we possibly can. And obviously I try to tell everybody that, if you come to Robinson and play flag football, if you leave and it's not one of your 3 best high school experiences, then we failed. And we're not shooting for number 3 on that story, but I think top three is the, is kind of where we've set it just to make sure that we give ourselves a little wiggle room.
Yeah. Just for reference, I did this from a statistics standpoint and is like, I know you wouldn't bring these up, but I know you could rattle it off in the back of your head, like, because I've heard you. I just put it on Google and I used the AI and I said, like, tell me what I need to know about Robinson High School, Robinson Flag. This is what it said. It said, the most successful program in the history of high school flag football. 11 state championships, 10 of which were consecutive, starting in 2014 till now. It said, this is the third sentence, Josh Saunders is the winningest coach in the history of the sport. And then 5 academic state championships. I looked up the overall record, 301 and 34. I'm sure you know it by heart. Mm-hmm. But it said specifically in the last 9 years, 195 and 8. 195 and 8 in the last 9 years. I remember when we got there and you were saying, whatever you do, don't break the streak. There was a lot of pressure. It had been like, I think 4 seasons and you guys hadn't lost a game. And the Correct. JV team was probably even longer. And I remember the girls both saying, like, we just don't want to break the streak. I don't want to be the reason that we break the streak. I think that's powerful, the stats, but more importantly, the things that we're going to talk about are the things that were behind those stats. Those stats didn't just come, because of like, going out and getting the best people. Simple. Put them on the field, and all of a sudden you put the best people. We've seen it in enough sports where you put the best people out on the field. They don't necessarily win, and they don't win for a consistent amount of time. What are your thoughts when I rattle off something like that?
Yeah, it's been very cool. I mean, I was talking to our team about, getting the 300 wins, and it was my 300th win happened in the state semifinal. So the state semifinal game was the 300th win. And I knew it was going to be 300, but my hope was that nobody else did because that's a weird day to have because you literally are playing the state finals the next day and you're looking for the team to stay focused on team. And that's such an individualistic kind of thing. And then Max Preps went and immediately published something that said 300 wins. So then there ended up being a lot. And the parents had already planned something for so I was trying to downplay most of that but there's been, and then the FHSA Hall of Fame happened like 2 weeks before that. So there was a lot of talk about the stats and things like that. So I think the interesting part and what it does more than anything else is it shows the level of competitiveness and accountability and kind of desire to continue to be great, not just from each individual player, but entire groups of people, like the captains that then instill upon brand new players, like, Ryan coming in and just saying, hey, this is how we do things here. And there is an expectation that this is how you're going to handle kind of what this is going to happen. And yes, we don't want to be the one that breaks the streak and we don't want to be, you know, but it has nothing to do with just rolling the balls out and winning games. It has everything to do with this is the process for how we do things. And that process is going to be what leads to victories. And it's not like sometimes they become all encompassing. Like it takes too much. Like you mentioned the JV thing. We hadn't, we won every JV game for 13 years from 2011 until 2024. And by the time we kind of got to 2024, kind of became too much. We were at like 100 and something straight wins. And it was kind of, and for freshmen and incoming players, it was all they kind of thought about. So we ended up losing to Leonard in a game where I took the starting quarterback out of the game. I'm not out of the game. I didn't allow her to dress for the game, not because she was in trouble, but because I thought we might need her to play a different position on the varsity team. Mm-hmm. And as it turns out, we didn't need her. So she ended up standing next to me the entire time and never having played. But we had lost the JV game after I removed this, and it was a really tough day. It was my fault. I think we win the game if I allowed the starter to play, but it was hard on the backup because she knows that she lost the streak, and and it wasn't her. We didn't play well in a lot of different capacity, but it was interesting because that was also the same girl who played quarterback in the state championship game this year. And she completed 35 straight passes in the state championship game, which I've never even seen before. And it was, but I think kind of going with that pressure, like we talk about feeling failure, you have to be able to feel failure in other aspects. Because if you don't feel failure while you're practicing, or you don't feel failure while you're doing other things that aren't as important as the thing that actually matters, then when it actually matters and you're not used to it, it'll eat you up. Like I don't have to make people feel failure in the state championship game, because the second you drop a ball or the second you don't do the right thing, you're going to feel it from everywhere. It's not going to be from me. So we actually try to create, kind of make people feel failure in practice in games that don't matter. Because when games do matter, you have to feel that failure and still be able to answer. And I think that was probably pretty evident in this last state championship game, because we were feeling a lot of failure on defense, and then we would turn around and play offense really well, and it was the same kids. And they had that ability. We tried to really build the capacity in them to be able to handle that and still bounce back and be able to make plays. And so I think that's kind of what that whole streak and how you kind of deal with all of that and feeling that pressure, I think allows them to then, when they get to other things and other games, and like when we played in Oregon and they're on TV and it's a big deal at Nike and everything that's happening there, I think that they, we're kind of not used to that exact feeling, but similar feelings that kind of help us deal with that feeling.
Yeah. That coach, the way you articulated that, I wrote a bunch of notes, feeling the failure. I love that. Right. And I want to talk about like what you want people to feel when they think about you and when they think about Robinson. And it's okay if those are kind of one in the same, because I do believe that, when you love your organization, you love what you do, those two things kind of become your reputation, and your organization's reputations become one and the same. But the way that they feel that pressure and the way that they go on, I just want to tell you, like, when Ryan is absolutely loving it at West Point, and most people say there's a ton of pressure on people at West Point. Like when you show up as a freshman, she's playing volleyball. There's a ton of pressure, that's out there. There's a ton of pressure to try to get on the court, to play. Like people always ask, how much are you getting to play? Does it matter? Like, are you on the team? Like, and I have seen in her the level of confidence, and it absolutely kind of started several years ago with you and this program that you've created out there. It's done the same for Evan, and it's done the same for all of your players that I can only imagine when you talk about like the streak and stuff, what they do after they leave high school, what they do after this program, what the people that are part of that program, you said IB, you just lobbed it out there, the internet baccalaureate, whatever it stands for, right? These are the smartest kids in the school. Right. And the people that are on your teams, they're also playing other sports, and they're like probably better at some of those other sports like track,
For sure.
And softball and volleyball. But the way you've allowed them to kind of keep playing with you, but don't back off on school, and don't you got to get good grades. And some people went off and are doing phenomenal, with the USA team. Some of your players are still playing with them. Right. But they're getting good grades, and they got good jobs, and they got good lives. And before you know it, some of them are going to come back, and some of your players are probably going to start to have kids on your team. If you stick around too much longer, I wonder when that first of those is going to happen.
We have one. It's happened this year. It's happened this year. We had my first year. We had a player, and then her child. So it's been. I mean, I guess this is my 21st year, so I guess it's probably not terribly unexpected. Her kid is a freshman on our team, was a freshman on our team this year. So she is.
Wow.
They are the most successful mother-daughter in the history of the program. They're the only ones, but they're the most successful ones currently.
So try to say it. Like, what do you want people to think when they hear your name?
So everybody asks us all the time how we do it. How do you do all this? And what's the secret? And the reality is it's not really that big of a secret, right? If you do all the ordinary things consistently really, 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 really well, then that's how you achieve greatness. It's not about doing the really big things and the really flashy things, but just do the little things all the time correctly. And then the way you'll realize at the end of the day is that you're just in a really good place. And I don't think that's probably not special to flag football. I think that's probably true of anything. Just you don't have to be spectacular and flashy and think big. Just think small and do small things really, really well, better than everybody else. And then you're going to end up being better than everybody else as it relates to kind of how that works. So I guess if people, I don't know, if I would imagine most people when they would think of me, think he's pretty intense, but I would prefer instead of intense, I would prefer they use the word passionate, right? Like, yeah. So he's passionate about his kids, his program, and kind of everything that involves everything I do. I care a lot about doing it. And there are things that I don't care as much about doing. And then when I'm not as good at it, like golf, for instance, I just don't, I can't put forth the amount of effort that I do into that. And then I'm bad at it. I don't understand why I'm bad at it. And it's very frustrating. But as it relates to flag football, I put a lot of effort into it. So hopefully that's what people would notice. Like, he tried really hard. Like, I don't need people to think, oh man, he was just gifted beyond, I'm not capable of doing that, because people probably are. You just have to try harder than everybody else and continue to put in that effort and work every day throughout the course of everything you're doing, right? It can't ever get boring for you. One of the things that, somebody asked us if we were, my principal asked me like 3 years ago, like, why do you do it? And my answer to him was, I remember in 2015, we did not win. So you referenced the 2014 state championship. That was the first one. And then in 2015, we made it back to the state finals. We played the same exact team and we lost. And they did something at the beginning of the game that I wasn't ready for. It was something that we had not properly prepared them for. So at the end of that 2015 game, I felt like it was my fault. They weren't ready and it was my fault. And I kind of made a promise to myself then that we were never going to be surprised by a team to where I couldn't get out of a situation, and it would never be my fault that we would lose. I would never allow that to be the reason. And I make the reference, and she'll probably, hopefully never hear this because Amanda Chromiak was our head captain at the time. And at the end of that game, she let out like it gives me goosebumps right now thinking about it. She let out it was like a cry, like a yell or kind of like a wailing because we had just lost. And I never want to hear that sound again because I felt like that sound was my fault. And it was, because, and again, the game was close, but at the very beginning they scored and it was something that we just weren't ready for. So I kind of made that decision it was never going to be my fault because we weren't ready. Like I didn't do something and that caused that to happen because I never want any of my players to have that feeling Amanda had that day. And eventually it's going to happen. We're going to lose a game. We're going to lose a game that matters. We're going to lose a game where it's important. And we're just going to have to deal with that when it happens. But man, it's not going to be because I wasn't willing to work hard enough to make that happen. That's not going to be the reason. So that's what I told my principal is that I don't want, yes, the captains on our team now have won 3 years in a row. And yes, they've had a fantastic career. And if we don't win this year, they're still going to have a fantastic career and they're going to go on to do those great things that you're talking about. But man, it is not going to be because I wasn't willing to work. And it's not going to be because the staff wasn't willing to work and we weren't going to be willing to do the things that we needed to make sure that they got that experience. It's this game is kind of, I'm going to actually answer your question now, I think, because I think I got to an answer I like.
I love it. I love it.
But I want people, for us and for this program, to be like, man, they created experiences for kids. They were able to create experiences that you can't get anywhere else. You were able to get them through Robinson flag football. You were able to have these experiences, and those experiences could be things like we went to Nike and we announced the draft pick, and those are things that happen. But really, the experiences are you got to be in those pressure situations. You got to be in these big games. You got to have those quiet moments where it's just you and the team, and you're just having those moments that you can't have really anywhere else, and where you're just in that group and you feel so connected to this group of people that you remember that for forever, and that you're looking forward to those emails 10 years from now. And then when something pops up and you comment on a thing, because that brings back a memory that you won't ever let go. And you don't need to have particular things, tangible items, because you have that inside memory and that way that you did things. And you realize, man, that's how we did it when I was at Robinson Flag. Like, that's what I think I want people to understand the best. And that's what I try to take into the other things that I'm doing in my life now too.
Yeah. I can promise you that not just our girls that played with you, but like me and Christy got to experience those same things that like you never get to experience, anywhere else. Like from watching your kids, the way they prepare for practice now, because of the way that you had them prepare for practice, wearing the right clothes, wearing the right cleats, wearing the right socks, doing everything appropriate in practice, so that in game day, it just felt like norm, all the way to sitting in the Bucks Stadium and watching your team out on the field with Richard Sherman and Big Wit filming the Thursday Night Football. Like
yes.
they were running the plays that the Ravens were going to run, and they were using your team to demonstrate like how they were going to pitch the ball and how they were going to run the ball against the Bucks. And sure as hell, the Ravens ran the ball against the Bucks that night, and
just
the Bucks,
like they told them.
They laid it out, and it was really tough to stop him that night. It was the same way, and I could see why you run those plays. Really hard to stop. You talked a little bit about like why you created this, right? Rewind the tape back to like when you first, you're a math teacher, you're here at Robinson. What made you say, I want to get in on flag football and I want to start creating these kind of unforgettable opportunities for these girls and these families?
So I always, I tell this story as often as I possibly can, because I think it's really important to always know where you started and where you came from and kind of, and what caused everything to happen. So when I first started teaching, I was coaching basketball at Armwood High School, which is a different school in Tampa. And then I transferred to Robinson, I guess, on my 6th year, to start my 6th year of teaching. And Robinson is where I went to school. It's kind of where it's the same spot where my mom lives. And it was, I always kind of knew if I was going to teach and I could teach and coach at Robinson, that's what I would do. And I was coaching basketball, boys basketball, and tackle football. And then in 2006, they decided they were going to start flag football and in the county. And so at the time I was playing, so just after college, I was playing in probably around 2000. I started playing flag football just recreationally, competitively, I guess. And we were playing, and that year in 2005, teacher came in. His name was Eric Vance. He played for the Bucks. He played at Vanderbilt. You mentioned Vanderbilt earlier, but he played at Vanderbilt, and then he played for the Bucks for a little while. And he had transitioned out of the NFL, and he was teaching math, and his room was right next to mine. And we, of course, immediately got him on our flag football team because he played safety for the Bucks, and he was good. So we got him on our flag football team. And then so when flag football started, he's like, dude, we got to do this. This will be so much fun. And I was like, man, I'm already coaching two sports. You be the head coach and I'll be the assistant coach. And he's like, all right, cool. We're going to do it. And we were terrible. I mean, we were really bad. We started five freshmen because it was a brand new sport. And three of the five freshmen, I think, were cheerleaders. And it was, but one of the things that those cheerleaders did was it made flag football cool because the cheerleaders were cheerleaders. So they were popular kids. So it made flag football to be something that kind of popular kids did. And we were awful. Like I said, we were 1-8. And obviously, I don't claim that record. That record is not mine. So whereas I am 301-34, the program is 302-42 because the 1-8 is attached to his name. So my guy Eric. So after the first year, he actually got a job with the Bucks as the player development person with the Bucks. So in that scenario for him, it was a good opportunity for him. So he ended up doing that. And then I took over as head coach, and I was still coaching the other two things. And we weren't particularly good then either. We went 4-6. You said I was going to be able to rattle off years. We went 4-6, 6-4, 6-4. So my first 4 years, and you don't want to do the math on this, but my first 4 years we were 16, and first 3 years we were 16-14, right? And compare that to the 301-34, right? So
Yeah.
you take those things off. We're 285-20 since then. So those first 3 years, and in reality, I was still doing kind of all those other things, and it really wasn't. It was just something kind of to do,
Yeah.
and it really wasn't until 2011. So after my fifth year, because after that we went 9-2 and 8-3 the 2 years after that. And we were like, oh, okay, we're kind of getting better at this.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is cool. And in those 2 years, we had a little freshman that showed up and played kind of JV. Her name was Dalia Autry. And so she was wildly competitive and little lefty quarterback and just kind of ran around and we were running like option and stuff like that. And it was a bit of a mess. And in her going into her junior year, she was pretty adamant that we started playing more. And I go, okay, great. And let's play more. And then so I kind of stopped coaching other stuff. I kind of started getting away from, I decided I would be a basketball referee instead of a basketball coach, which has worked out great. And so as we continued to kind of do that, we just started playing more. I'm watching how these other teams are doing things, and I'm like, man, these teams are good. Like people are throwing the ball. Like we're like running option and we're doing other kinds of things. And I remember I kind of met Matt Hernandez, who's a really good friend of mine and the head coach at Alonzo. We met for the first time watching a regional playoff game at Plant High School. And we're both sitting there watching and just trying to figure out how can we make our teams better. We're the only two coaches there watching this game with a handful of parents. And it was like, we got to figure out how to make this better. And we both ended up, now we're both like probably the top two people. So two of the top people in the country in terms of flag football as it comes to things because we have a similar mindset. But it really was kind of, Dalia was kind of a big part of this. And it was a big part of, hey, I want to be really good at this. Can you help me be really good at this? And we will do anything. And kind of that competitive thing and kind of the irony of that is she's probably the biggest reason that the program kind of turned around. We went 15-2 her junior year and lost in the state quarterfinals. And then we went 15-2 in her senior year and also lost in the state quarterfinals. And her last year was 2013. And then the run of state championships started after she was gone. But what she was able to do was she was able to instill in that group and every group that came after that is this is how we're going to do things. And we're going to be committed. We're going to be, and you mentioned people playing other sports. One of our most common themes here is you need to be 100% committed even if you aren't 100% available. So 100% committed without being 100% available. We don't need you to be at every practice, but man, when you're here, I need you to be locked in and I need you to want to be here. And so you can have your other sports, you can do the other things, but I need you to be all in as it relates to flag football when you can be. And we have been over the top about allowing, and not allowing is not the right word. I'm not the father of any of these children. So
Yeah.
I don't get to tell another kid what they can and can't do in their free time. And I don't think any coach should. So if you want to be a volleyball player and you're playing all your volleyball and you're doing club volleyball and you can only make it to 50% of the practices, great. Come to 50% of the practices and we would love it. But kind of that driving force has been the thing that has, as every group has gone, is they're trying to leave it better than they found it. They're trying to push it forward, and it all comes back to that kind of that group that Dalia had that just decided that this was going to be something that was going to be important to them. And I wanted to make it important to me. And obviously I feel bad for Dalia's group because I didn't fully know what I was doing, and so as I started to figure it out, I'm wildly competitive human being. So I have to win and have to try to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to try to create those experiences. And it's been really cool that, she went on, and you probably know, but a lot of them won't know that she went on to, now she is on Team USA. So she is on the US national team, and she just turned 30 and she is still playing flag football at a ridiculously high level with her hopes and sights are set on the Olympics in 2028. She came back to us in like 2021 and she is coaching with us now. So it's super exciting to just kind of watch, and such a mentor for our kids that they can just kind of look up and see Dalia and just be like, man, she has kind of made flag football a thing for her, and it kind of dominates kind of what she's doing in her life. But the coolest part about Dalia is she got her degree from South Florida, USF, and then she went and got her master's and doctorate from FAMU as she continued to play. And then she came back and got her MBA from the University of Florida. So she ended up she has been wildly committed to that education piece that you were talking about and just being over the top. And so now she's a doctor and she's doing all those things and she's still playing flag football at a
That's
ridiculously
crazy.
high level. Now, I mean, it's amazing. So it's one of those stories that you're just like, man, that is so wildly impressive. And then, and that's the kind of kid that you're trying to create. That's the kind of kid that we hope to create here. The one that not only is really good at flag football, that's the baseline, but they're awesome kids, they're awesome people, and then they go on to do really cool things. So, and I think that I don't even remember the question at this point, but it was, yeah.
You nailed it. You nailed it, which was why did you create it? And you talked
Right.
a ton about the why. When you go into the early years, okay, you said, how do I figure it out? Like you said, we won those games,
Mhm.
and you're like, okay, now we're passionate. The why is there. This happens with a lot of organizations, right? The why is there. I want this organization to do these things and create these things. What were some of the ways that you said, I got to figure out, using flag football as an example, right? I got to figure this shit out because like
Mhm.
I want to give them this opportunity. I want them to win. And you're like, and we don't know enough about flag football. Like, what was some of the processes you went to create what you've got kind of going on right now? How did you learn?
Yeah. So this is when we decided we were going to start playing more. We said, hey, let's go play in the summer, and we get out there in the summer, and we're trying to find these leagues, which are everywhere now in Florida anyway. And we try to find these ways that we can play, and how can we get better. And we get out there, and there is this team. They were called Six Pack, and they were the club team of Seminole Ridge. And we're watching this team, and it was amazing. I'm like watching them, and they're throwing the ball around, and they've got route concepts that are on top. They're running flood concepts, and they're just standing back there and throwing the ball and deliver. And I'm like, oh my God, there is a whole set of this. Because at this point we had kind of just stayed in the Tampa area, and we had all just started in 2006, so we were just kind of all trying to figure it out on our level. And then as we started to see what other people were doing outside, like we say it all the time now, you got to get outside of your area code. If you can't get outside of your area code, you don't know what anybody else is doing. So we were
Mm.
getting outside of our area code and we're watching these people and these other teams and the different styles and the way they play. And it was like, it was amazing. And we're like, whoa, this is a different, like this requires a different level of what we were doing. And I will never forget in 2013, going into 2014. So this is summer of 2013. We went down to where Seminole Ridge is in kind of West Palm, and we beat them in a game. And I was like, whoa, we're here. We've arrived. Like Seminole Ridge had won 3 state titles up to that point. When we beat them, I think they had won like 60 straight off-season games or 60 straight club games. And we were like, whoa, we just won this game and this is amazing. And then the very next weekend or 2 weekends later, there was a different tournament and it was up in the Tampa area and we beat them again. And we were like, we really have a chance to be really good at this. And when our kids kind of got, it's kind of like Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called The Tipping Point.
Amen.
And yeah, and it is, you kind of are doing something, and then you reach a point and it just suddenly switches where something suddenly becomes wildly popular, or something becomes, and for us, that was the tipping point. It was that, oh my God, we have a chance to be really, really good at this. We have a chance to be phenomenal. We have a chance to be competitive at the highest levels. And then that kind of fueled everything that we did. And it was really kind of amazing. We ended up playing Seminole Ridge in the preseason. So now the season has started in 2014. We played Seminole Ridge in the preseason. And I think the score, they beat us 7-6, I think, at least in my mind, that was the score.
Sure, that was the
And,
score. You can
but it was
remember.
very, very competitive. The game was super competitive. It was super, and they were very excited to win that game in that preseason game. And I remember my assistant coach looking at me and going, look how excited they are to win that game. Like they believe that we are their equals because of that. And up until that point, we were not there. So then we end up, fast forward into the season, we're 18-0, they're 18-0, and we're playing in the state finals, and then we win the game 7-6. That score, I'm certain of. we win the game 7-6. And it was just kind of like that big arrival moment, like this is it. This is and that was, people ask me now with all the things that we've been able to do that flag football has become, like when people are like, could you imagine? The answer is no. Because back then the only thing we ever wanted to do was like, man, if we could compete for a state title, that's the pinnacle of everything. And then now it's gone so much past that. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I think there's so many similarities, in my head spinning, like just thinking about like how you create that for the organization that you're passionate about, or the team that you might be super passionate about. I want to get into like a little bit of you said do the little things, right? And regardless of what organization you're a part of, the best thing you can do, I think, is to just be so good at whatever that organization is asking you to do in that moment, right now. Just dig into it, get into some of the little things and the details, and that will kind of spark winning in the future. What were some of those things? I know you said some of the route plannings. I know you said some of the throwing the ball around. But what were some of the things that you instilled in the program? And you said, if we get these things right, whether it be recruiting or the way we practice needs to be a little bit better. What were some of those things that you focused on getting them in there?
Yeah, so the things that kind of got us to a really good point at the beginning was, like I mentioned, the cheerleaders back in the very beginning. We were always able to create an environment that was welcoming and that was fun and even when we were 1-8, the Eric Vance did a great job of just being, it was fun. It was a fun place to be at, even though we stunk. Like it was, but it was super cool to kind of be in that, to be part of the team. And so we were able to get volleyball players and basketball players and soccer players, and we were able to kind of to get kind of the best athletes. And we're a pretty small school, at least in terms of public schools. And so needing those players, like we don't have, I'd say probably 20% of our team, maybe a little bit more, is flag only players. Most of them, 70% of them are doing another Robinson sport. And it probably gets to 80% about doing at least another outside sport, or an outside activity, whether it be dance or whether it be something that is they're passionate about outside of what we're doing. So we were always able to do that, which is what I think allowed us to get to a point where we were going to be pretty good. And then kind of, I'm going to give Seminole Reds a little bit more credit because I sat in a conference before we were ever good and listened to the head coach of Seminole Ridge said, flag football is not that hard. Catch footballs and pull flags better than the other team. You're probably going to win. And it's 100% true. Like the basics of the game are I need to catch the ball and I need to pull the flag. And if I do those two things at a higher level than everybody else, then we're going to be really good. And so we overemphasize, like we're going to start practice tomorrow for our summer stuff. And in our summer stuff, we are going to catch footballs and pull flags. That's what we're going to do. 90% of our summer is going to be around those two things because you can design all the plays and route concepts you want, and you can have all the ideas in your mind about how you're going to play defense and how you're going to, what you're going to do and how you're going to impact. But if you don't catch the football and you don't pull flags, you aren't going to win. Like that's the secret sauce. Do that better than everybody else. And that's not that big of a secret.
Coach, I remember like it was yesterday, Ryan running a route in a game, and she bent the route and the ball hit her right in the hands and she dropped it. And she ran straight towards the sideline. And you looked at her and said, "Get back out on the field." And she's like, because she was so sure, you drop a ball, you were out of the game. You drop one ball, you were out of the game. And you went, "Get back out there." And again, put the confidence back in her, get back out on the field, catch the next one, that's out there. And I'll never forget. I still have the video in my phone, in the state championship game, bending that route, off into the corner, and that ball was fully stretched out, hands like this. And I remember the coach saying, "Who was the girl with the white gloves that caught that ball on the goal line?" And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about, catch the ball and pull flags better than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, you get a lot of people, especially now, because there's so many opportunities in the flag football space. You get so many people kind of just given all kinds of things and, oh, we can do this and we can do that. The last probably year or so, I've been over the top about the coolest play in flag football is the 7-yard hitch. Just throw and catch a 7-yard hitch better than everybody else, and you're going to be fine. We run 7-yard hitches probably certainly more than any other team. And it is boring. I'm training quarterbacks, right now. And I tell them, a lot of this is going to be boring, but it's not boring winning state championships. And, and I'll go back to Annie Keith, who just was the quarterback that
Player of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2A player of the year who didn't start playing quarterback until game 11. But she did so Paige Halverson tore her ACL. You guys know Paige very well.
Yes.
And she tore her ACL in game 10 as a senior, and she's our head captain. And it was a miserable moment kind of on our team. And it was something that it was like, okay, but what do we do now? And Annie was the backup, but she never wanted to kind of be a quarterback. And at this point, she didn't really have a choice. And we had another freshman that we were like, okay, so we were going to play them both. We were going to play them both with the idea that maybe the freshman can kind of get to a point where we can kind of do what we're supposed to do. But the advantage that Annie had, and she didn't treat it as an advantage because she didn't even want to play quarterback, but the advantage that she had was for 3 years, she had done our passing lines where we just catch and throw balls all day. Like 45 minutes every day, we do the exact same thing. It is amazingly boring on what we do every single day for 45 minutes. Like I don't have to speak for the first 45 minutes of practice because they know exactly where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do and what happens next. And we just go through it. And it's the same thing. So she had been doing that. So she had probably thrown out, I don't know, one day I'll probably figure out the number. She had thrown 1,000 hitches, thousands of hitches, just over and over and over again. So then when she took over at the quarterback position, our plan was to make this as simple as we possibly could. We
10,000
wanted to
hours.
say, just keep doing the same thing that you've done over and over and over and over again, and it'll be super easy. And then by the time we got to game 22, we threw an out route on the first play and we dropped it. And I was like, and then we actually had a false start. So then, like the first two plays in the state
You
championship
can
game,
remember every play. I'm sure you can
gave
remember
up
every play.
we gave up a touchdown, so there we're down 7-0 and the extra point, and then we drop a pass, and then the center, who never makes a mistake, Natalie, doesn't hear the play call and then hitches on the snap, and so now we've lost another 5 yards, and I'm like, what in the world is happening? So I'm like, all right, we got to settle down. So then we went hitch, and then it's like completion, and then completion, and then completion. And then she completed 35 passes in a row. And it was just the confidence and the level of that, but it was just like passing lines. It was just the same thing that she had done every single day for 3 straight years. And we were just repeating that same process over and over and over again. And again, not terribly exciting, not terribly like you would look. The other team had way more highlights, like way more big plays and way more, but we scored every time we had the ball because it was just boring, systematic, machine-like. And that was just because every day we concentrated on catching footballs and pulling flags. And, she obviously did a great job completing 35 passes in a row, but somebody had to catch the 35 passes, right? Without anybody making
no one
without
dropped
anybody
one.
having to drop. No one dropped one. And it wasn't, so, and I think it just, and that is, again, going back to the same exact thing they did every day in practice over and over and over again.
Ryan asked me to ask you this. Well, I'll get to that one next. Every year, it seems like one of your best players is going to get hurt. Every year, right? Montesby got hurt right before the season.
It feels that way. Yep, two out of three.
Montesby got hurt. She reminded me, Bella Rodriguez got hurt. She was your center, and she got hurt right at the beginning, like one of the first games of the season. And now Paige this year. What is it that you're already anticipating? God, sign of the cross. Like, we don't want somebody to get hurt, but when somebody does, how are you able to have somebody step up into those positions so routinely that when you lose your MVP, like everybody I just said was the team captain or a team captain, right? And not that it's the Madden curse or the captain curse, but like, why are you able to keep going? And if nothing, almost get better. Like we have to do it for her, keep this thing going. How are you able to kind of instill that?
So there's going to be a couple of pieces to this. One of these is going to be, I'm pretty sure it's a military saying of some sort. We believe very firmly, and it's probably been a saying that we've had probably for at least 5 years, right? I don't think anybody ever rises to the occasion. I don't think that exists. I think you always sink to the level of your training. So in moments of adversity, people don't step up. I don't think that exists. I think you always revert back to what you know. So for us, we want to make that training, we want to make that floor so high that even when things are getting super antsy and things are over the top hard and things are not what we want them to be, where do we go back to? We go back to the things that are just muscle memory for us. And that's what we're trying to create. And we don't want it to create it in just 1 or 2 or 3 players. We want to create it in 15 of them at the varsity level. We're going to try to create people that are going to make that opportunity. And in a couple of cases, in Montesby's case, she was replaced in that by an incoming freshman, Sarah Williams, at her slot position on offense. And what we told them, and I remember the team meeting that we had, I mean, it was awful. Montesby getting hurt was awful. It was going into her senior year. It was 2 weeks before the season started. It was a pretty obvious ACL injury from the very beginning. It was at a practice I wasn't at, which made it for me devastating because I kind of consider myself kind of responsible for all of them. And there was nothing that could be done to prevent that. And so the thought of her being on that field and crying and just not being able to, realizing that she's kind of going through that, for me, heartbreaking. And I remember the next maybe I think we let it be official that it was a torn ACL, but so maybe it wasn't a week. It was before that. So I think it was good. I remember getting the team together in the flag room and we're having a conversation. And I said, under no circumstances is anybody on this team ever going to replace her. You can't replace your best player. You can't replace your head captain. That can't be the expectation. That would be doing too much to a single player. But what we need is everybody else to just maintain slightly more focus. We don't need anybody to go do things differently. We just need you to be more concentrated on your job and doing the thing that you're supposed to do so that we don't let them down. I know in Monasty's case, it was in that meeting that it kind of makes me tear up now. In that meeting, we were so over the top. The year before, so in 2023, we had lost a game to Leonard. We had lost a game to Leonard and one to Alonzo. I think we might have been 20-2, I think, the year before, and won the state title, and it was fine. And we lost, and Montesby was so over the top going into her senior year, and the captains were so over the top that we needed to win all of the games. Like, it was really important that, and I told them in that meeting that goal had not changed. Like, our goal had not changed because she wouldn't want that goal to change to where all of a sudden, it's okay then if we struggle through this. And we, and there was a process, and our assistant coach Arnaldo kind of, there was a grieving process that our team went through because what we expected to look like was not going to look like that. And so it took us a little bit to get there. And then I remember just Modesty being so locked in on her finding a way to help, and Paige did the exact same thing. Her finding a way to help while she couldn't play, and being a coach and being all of the things that, somebody for that linebacker to lean on, that new linebacker that was coming in to play her position, and somebody for Sarah Williams as an incoming freshman on the best team in the country. Like, how does she handle that? Well, she handled that because Modesty was there to help her along the way. And Modesty was going over routes with her. And how did Annie Keith handle playing quarterback? Because Paige was watching film with her. All the stuff you don't see as she's completing 35 passes in a row is because Paige is over there walking through kind of, this is the read on this play, and this is how you do this, and this is going to be what we're looking for when we're trying to do this. So while those people weren't there, they were so there, and they were so on top of kind of everything that we were doing. And without either of them being there, if they got hurt and then went away, we don't win. They were just as instrumental for us on the field as they were off the field as they would have been on the field. And oddly, I think it kind of changed them and kind of made them better people, just kind of better leaders and better whatever things that they would not have been able to accomplish if they were playing. They were able to see things differently, see what they were capable of, and going through that level of adversity. I can't even kind of really imagine. You've committed to, in both of their cases, they were flag only players. You've committed to being a flag football player and being on this team and going through those things. And then in your senior year, that is all taken away in one swoop because one kid hit you in the knee. And all of a sudden, everything that you fought for, in Paige's case, she had waited 3 years to be quarterback one. And so now she is finally there, and then it all goes away. And then to be able to handle that and then channel that energy back into helping, I think it's phenomenal. I think it's over the top, says character about them, and it says character about what their teammates mean to them. And you give me an opportunity to hire either one of them, and Bella as well. Hers was just a little before that, so it's not as fresh in my mind. But you give me the opportunity to hire any of them to run anything for me, I'm doing it, because those are the kind of people that you want around you.
Those are the kind of people I make notes like that, Coach, like those impactful moments. I make notes, so I can highlight them at the beginning. And so I can highlight them at the beginning. That gives me goosebumps just kind of thinking about it. And I can tell you, it makes you emotional, because it makes me emotional to think about, those players and those people. You gave them an opportunity at such a young age to get a taste of what it's like. If you think it's cool to score a touchdown, if you think it's cool to, in our case, do a live fire and have somebody kind of compliment you and say, that was a great live fire, or great job hitting the target with your weapon. Once you see the people that you trained score the touchdown, and once you see the people that you coached, kind of get that feeling, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother level of being able to get somebody to feel that as a coach or as a leader. And you got them to get a little taste of that in high school about helping somebody else be successful in life is so much more addictive than being successful yourself. And so I think you nailed it. Thanks for the way you talked about teammates and Montesvi and Bella Rod. The question that Ryan asked me to ask you about is, how have you instilled in peer leadership where you said, I didn't even need to talk the first 45 minutes. The captains become the leaders of the team, and how these girls are best friends. Like, they are best friends out in class and at school and sleepovers and everything. But once they cross the line, that's the team captain, and how they've instilled this accountability with each other. And just like the Tim Duncan look, if they just give you this look, and they do the little hand signal, that's what this means. How have you started to kind of breed that, and then you end up deciding kind of who are your captains?
Yeah. So one of the things, the interesting, I don't decide. That's one of the things that's kind of neat about this program. And I'm not even sure how this kind of became a thing, but we don't pick our captains. Our outgoing captains pick our incoming captains. So when a captain leaves here, they are tasked with the responsibility of picking the next captain. And so all of our head captains have to pick the next head captain that takes over from them. And because they see things I can't possibly see. They see the interactions in the hallway. They see the way that they prepare for practice. They see the way that they, are acting when nobody's watching. And so they know so much better than I do about who would be great at captain, who cares about this, who cares about the program, who cares about their teammates. They know that better than I would, as opposed to who cares about themselves and who cares about, and you need those players too. You need all types. But so for us, I've never had to veto a captain choice. So I suppose I could if I thought somebody just went completely off the rails, but I haven't picked a captain in 10 years, 12 years, I think. They have always selected the next one. And so in that, we literally just had a captain's meeting right before we started this call at a Starbucks. And so I've got the three captains together, and we talked about kind of our roles and responsibilities and how we're going to handle this. And what I tell them is that I want you to handle all problems that you can. I said, and then after you handle the problem, then tell me about it. I'm not going to do anything because you're going to tell me it's good and we're handled, but you're going to let me in on it just because I need to know if something went wrong or something went a little sideways. But tell me you've got it, and I won't even act on it. Or if we reach a point where, hey, I can't fix this problem and I need your intervention, then you let me know that too. And then now I can step in and I can be the adult in the room and I can handle that part. And there's no, it's not a downside if you can't handle a problem, but just sometimes you just run into an issue. I remember quite a few years back, we had two captains that had an issue. One captain didn't like the way another captain was talking to a JV player, and just kind of, she thought she was unnecessarily harsh to a player that was playing her position. And she came to me and she said, hey, I tried to handle it. I told her, I said, hey, we can't talk to people like that, but we're not going to do that here. And she did it again. And she goes, so my next interaction won't be as positive. So if you could kind of handle this. And then I 100% did. And it worked out great. But for her to have that ability to try to handle that on her own, I think is phenomenal. And just as we were meeting today, they were talking about issues from last year and issues that they handled without me. And then they told me that it was a thing. And I was like, yeah, no. Okay. I was like, yeah, I remember that. And I remember you telling me that it was a problem. And I walked by the player and I said, hey, are we good? And they went, good with what? And I said, with the issue that I heard about. And they go, oh, yeah. I talked to the captains. We're fine. And, and sometimes they can be bigger. And then sometimes they're just a little bit, it's hard. It's hard. It's really difficult to kind of hold your peers accountable, but wildly important. I mean, really over the top important to be able to kind of stand up to somebody who's, even in our case, we always have junior captain, so a captain that's younger, and then for them to be able to kind of look at a senior and be like, hey, that's not right, we're not doing it that way. And that requires something in you, and you don't just come out doing that, and it's a little bit harder, and then you kind of have to grow into that role a little bit, but it's super important. And I love kind of what we do with our captains. Our captains take it very seriously about who the next captain is, and that's why it's never been an issue for us, because they're so on top of leaving it better than they found it. Whereas our captains want to be very successful in the years they're in. They actually want to be wildly successful in the years right after they leave as well, because that's the team they've left, and it's going to be super important to them that they put those people in a position to be successful after they were gone. And I think that's super neat. And I think it's kind of very parenty. I think for us, like as parents, like, you obviously want your kids to be wildly successful, but more importantly than anything, after you aren't there anymore, you want them to continue to be able to be wildly successful. And I think our hope all the time is that we're instilling the values and the important parts and the things that matter into them, so that then after we're not here anymore, that they are able to continue being able to do the things that they can to be successful, and then give it to the next group and the next group and the next group. So I think that's pretty neat.
Coach, I'm going to ask you this question because as my coach, like what should I do in this situation? Okay. I've been in the Army now for 32 years, my entire adult life since I was 17 years old. Okay. And I grew up in the Ranger Regiment, right? I grew up in an organization that's like everything you're talking about right here, right? Where the little things, pulling flags and catching the 7-yard hitch and and catching the dang ball. Like, that was the foundation of my adult life, like growing up as a enlisted Ranger and into being a sergeant, right? What I've seen now as I'm getting older, and I've heard this in a lot of different ways, and I learned this in Australia listening to the infantry division commander in Australia, and he said this. He said, demonstrating the right thing is no longer good enough. We need to do a better job of holding people accountable at the lowest levels. And because we feel like in a little bit, we're struggling right now with the discipline at the youngest level, with pulling flags and catching balls, right? With how you wear your uniform, to, what you look like, your hair standards. The fact that we've had to get involved with some of these little things, right? Boots covered in mud in the commissary or at the PX. Like, that is an indicator. If we're willing to do that, what other things, little catch the ball, 5-7 yard hitches are also not doing? Because you said it, you fall to the level of your training, right? You don't raise to the occasion. People boots off on the front line, both boots off, weapons outside of your arm's reach. Those are little things that when you see it, you say, there's something going on here. What is your advice to me? What is your advice to us in the Army that are saying demonstrating is no longer good enough, and holding people accountable at the lowest level? How do we kind of bring that back along to the youngest soldier, the young sergeant, not necessarily the captain of the team, or go in any different direction you want to help me with that?
Yeah. So one of the things, I feel like I've given you all these sayings of things that we say, and they kind of happen. They happen pretty organically, or, just like anything, you hear one and then you kind of move on. What we've really kind of emphasized in my kind of coaching philosophy over the last probably 2 years is we're never walking past mistakes. So if somebody doesn't do something right, you have two options there. You can either talk about it and bring it up, or you can ignore it and hope they get it right the next time, or it doesn't matter. So by ignoring it, they don't know. And you mentioned the lowest levels. The lowest level, they don't know what they're doing. Like in your case, they're adults. They should know kind of what they're doing. And in my case, they're kind of younger kids, but they don't know how it's supposed to be done. So if you walk past a mistake, they might not even recognize that it's a mistake. In our case, their hands were bad on a catch. They had their hands in the wrong position. If I allow them to have their hands in the wrong position as they don't catch a ball and nobody corrects them, then that becomes something that's okay and permissible in that scenario. If we don't line our bags up every day at practice, or somebody actually turns their bag and it's facing the opposite direction, and nobody corrects that, then that becomes a problem, because then that becomes the new standard of it's okay for that to be a thing. And our hashtag this year was the standard, and that came from an NFL game. We had the benefit of doing our ring ceremony at the Bucks game when Carolina played the Bucks, and I was able to speak at halftime. Talk about cool experiences. Well, I spoke at halftime of an NFL game, and as they come out of the break, the two commentators on the national broadcast are talking about our team. And the one guy says, they are the standard of flag football. And right then, on December 29th, I was like, there's our hashtag right there. We are the standard. And the standard, as we talked to our team about, as we were making these changes because Paige got hurt, the standard can't change. The standard is the standard. It doesn't move. And the second that we lower our standard, and we're doing some of that because kind of around the country and in the world, we're changing what becomes acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and how we treat people and how we talk to people, and kind of all of the things that happens. But in the thing that I can control on this team, the standard's not moving. So we're not walking past mistakes. If somebody's doing something wrong, we're telling them. And the really cool part, to bring this kind of back to the captains, is now when we're in practice and somebody's doing something wrong, I generally don't have to tell them. The captain has told them. Or even wilder, a player who's not a captain has told some younger kid, hey, we don't wear earrings. We don't wear that. You got to take that off. And she's like, I got to take all this off? Yeah, you got to take all of it off, because we don't play with jewelry on, so we're not going to practice with jewelry on. And we're so over the top about it that they very rarely miss it. And when they do, with a younger kid, I have a tough time. I'm not going to be super hard on them because they're just kind of learning. But it'll be like, I'll ask them a question like, hey, how was your day, or something. And they'll say something. I'll be like, man, I was so distracted by the bling on your ears that I couldn't actually hear your answer. And then they're like, oh God, I forgot. And then then they kind of figure out a way to make that work. But that's the standard that we have to set forth. And the second that we allow the one kid to do it, or we run into this all the time. Oh, I just got it pierced. I can't take it out. Oh, okay. So then I've got options, right? Either we're going to cover it up, which is usually what I do in the summer, or I'm like, okay, but in the year they couldn't play. The fact that you just got it done is a you thing. That's not a team thing, right? Like, you just getting it done and you knowing that you can't play with that means that you are making a choice that you would rather have that than practice. And that can't be okay. Like, we've got to find a way to make that work. So not walking past mistakes. Every time somebody has their hands wrong, somebody is always telling somebody that, hey, that's not right. We can't do that. That's not the way we act. That's, and then if they see somebody in the hallway and they're screaming at some other kid over something, they're just yelling and being super loud, like, hey, we don't do that. And I think so. I guess to answer the question is, as annoying as it may be, I think the right answer is, you're not walking past the mistake. Whatever the mistake is, whatever you're constantly correcting and just saying, we're not going to lower this standard just because you didn't come in with the discipline that's required to be here, but you're going to get to the discipline that's required to be here. And I think, I'll give you an example that we had a kid a few years back, and we probably have a kid now that had some issues with kind of how they're supposed to act, or in some cases showing up on time. And we're going to give you some time to figure out what it is to be a Robinson flag player. And then if you're in year 2 and you're still doing those things, then you just don't want to be here that bad. Like, it just becomes a thing. Like, if you can't change behavior and you understand what being part of this program means, then maybe you just don't want to be here. You don't want to be here enough for it to change the way that you think, that you don't value what we value. And then you can't be here because of that.
Yeah, I think that speaks so much to me. That is great advice, and even harder, very much harder to follow through on doing that. Because if I walk out my door today put my uniform on. I got to correct myself because I'm the first person that wants to roll their sleeves up. I'm the first person that wants to put my sunglasses on top of my head. I'm the first person that doesn't want to put my headgear on, just walk into my car. I get it. And it's hard, So then if you're not willing to do it yourself, are you willing to kind of, as you walk down the street and look at somebody and say, put your headgear on, hey, fix this, do roll your sleeves down, get some clean boots on before. What I just did an episode with Sam Deal, and he reminded me of, you either don't know the standard, you either can't comply with the standard for some reason, or you won't comply. Mm-hmm. And those are like the three reasons that people, they don't know about the standard. They can't comply with the standard for some reason, and we can help them in that area, both of those areas. But if they won't comply, that's a them problem and not necessarily a us problem.
And then you got to go. And you just can't, if you know exactly what it is, you were told, and you're just like, nah, I don't care. Okay. You don't, I'll give you a different example of this was a parent example, right? And talk about, kind of correcting parent behavior is a weird vibe for a coach. But we had a parent that, and it was not a situation I was involved in, but we were at a tournament, and our team, sometimes we have two teams at events, and I was at one field and they were at another field, and they were with the younger people. So then the parents of the younger kids, they kind of don't know. They don't know kind of what the expectation is. And during the game, the parent could be heard yelling, "You got to throw the ball to everybody," right? Which is just kind of passive aggressive. Hey, you need to throw the ball to my kid more, or you've got to, and then it's like, we got to call better plays, or you should be playing. Make sure you play everybody, stuff like that. And we don't do that. Like you can. So I ended up reaching out to the parents, and I go, "Hey, this is what I heard," and I was a little kind of aggressive about it. This is what I heard. Hey, we don't do that here. And so immediately I get a phone call, and the parent is calling me and telling me all the things about, hey, I'm there and I'm allowed to say whatever I want. I'm allowed to kind of communicate, and I'm allowed to do all that. And I said, sir, you're 100% right. You are allowed to do all those things, but you are not allowed to do all those things and have your child play here. Right. So I can't stop you. You didn't do anything illegal, but your kid can't play here if that's the way that you're going to do things. And I said, you can call me and tell me all the things that we did wrong as a coaching staff. I'd love to hear them. Like I sincerely wish to hear all the things that you can tell me how we can improve. Right. But when you do it in public like that, loud enough for your kid to hear and other parents to hear, then you're now creating a culture that is not okay. You're now giving your child a reason why maybe things aren't going well, instead of them accepting accountability for why they didn't particularly. I wasn't given enough opportunities. You're allowing them, you're providing them with some sort of crutch, when in reality, we just need to make it like, hey, how do I get better? How do I make this better? And I count on myself to do that all the time. And I want our coaches to do that all the time. Is we're always going to look at us first. When we lose a game, it's on me. Right. And then on me, how could I have made them feel better about them? But I want our players to be like, that was on me, not that was on her. She dropped the ball. But what were the other things that I could have done? Even the players who don't play, how could I have made this game, this experience better for my team? Could I have done better in practice that would have potentially made them better in that situation? So in that case for that parent, and then we didn't have a problem ever again. Like we never had a problem after that. And the reality was, and the parent could have gone the other way. The parent could have been like, all right, well, then she can't play there. And I'd have been like, okay, cool, because the standard still has to be the standard, right? No matter how good the player is, no matter what the expectation is, the standard can't change just because the ability of the player. Like it has to be, you have to have this level that says everybody's got to get to here. And if you can't get to here, then you just can't be here, which is it's a little tough. It's a little tough for younger kids. It's certainly tough for adults, I can imagine. And then, but the weird opportunity when, you get an opportunity and you have to turn and try to correct another adult about their kid. It's a different vibe for sure.
Yeah. You've always been a person that with your program now that you've identified these challenges and you've lived through them. And so now you say, how do I get in front of that before it even gets to that sideline? And so can you talk through, I know you can you please talk through Like that first parent meeting where you hold in the cafeteria where there's chow, there's food, all the other parents come and bring it, and you make us fill out the paperwork. You talk about, we don't do fundraising around here. Please dabble on that. Why?
All right.
And you just stand up there and you give this welcome to Robinson and Robinson flag, and the way you deliver that to the parents to make sure that you don't have those sideline moments throughout the season.
Yeah, so the interesting part about that is we've kind of changed it a little bit. So we used to have just the one meeting right at the beginning of the season that is our parent meeting, and you're dead on. I talk about everything, and I'm kind of running the whole thing. But now we've kind of added this piece in the summer where we try to have parents, because what we've learned is that we have this group of parents that'll show up. Maybe there's 40 or 50 people that we'll have, and then we don't keep that many in the season. So there's a group of people that we don't actually see that I'll never even meet necessarily, because if they don't show up to a tournament, I won't see them. They're dropping their kid off, and they're just trusting me. So I want to put myself out there and put our staff out there. But what we've done with that meeting is we have the captains run it. The captains are the ones that are talking about kind of the expectations of the players and the parents, and kind of they run that entire meeting. And so I think we've done that 2 years in a row, and just kind of giving them another opportunity, right, for the captain to be the leader of the team, and just to give them an opportunity to kind of speak, and to where they don't just hear my voice all the time. But the going into the season meeting, we have slides for player expectations for sure, parent expectations for sure. For us, we have always wanted to be ambassadors of the game. We don't want our parents, and we don't want other people's parents to be like, I don't like them. I don't like that team. We want to beat them by a lot. And then we want the parents of the other team to be like, I want to be that team. How do we make our team that team? So we don't want it to be animosity. We want it to be, how do we imitate that? How do we find, how can we get our team to act like that? And I learned that, I don't want to throw Plant High School under the bus, but I'm going to do it anyway. I never wanted to be Plant football, Plant tackle football. I thought they were entitled. I thought they acted like clowns. I just didn't like the vibe that they gave off to other teams. And that was what I was over the top about. Like, we want to be ambassadors to the program. So, and the example I use is when we first started, we first got good. And when teams first get good, they're weird about, like, success is new to them. It's kind of like new money. They don't really know how to act. And parents don't really know how to act when your team is suddenly good. And we were beating a team 48-0, I think, 49-0. The scoreboard only had 48. And we had some parents that were like, hey, it's supposed to be 49. Well, hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's supposed to be 49. So when you're yelling that, what does the other parent feel like? What is the parent of the person that's getting beat 49-0? And you're like, oh my God, they're arguing about a point. They want to make sure we know that point is on the board. You'll never see our team take a picture of the scoreboard and post it. We don't post scores of our games ever, because our team knows the score. Like, you can look up the score, it's on Max Preps. But for us to post it and put it on social media, we're trying to say, hey, look at what we've done. Look how good we were. But when you say, look at how good we were, there's somebody at a different school. Maybe they're just starting flag, or maybe that kid is just playing quarterback for the first time. You're saying, look at how bad they were, right? And that kid has to go to school, and their friends see that post, oh, you lost 49-0. So then that kid is sitting in a class, and we're trying to promote the game of flag football, and the only thing that they're feeling is their friends are making fun of them because they just got beat 49-0. And I don't want to be responsible for that. I want to grow the game. I want to make sure that everybody is enjoying their flag football experience. We're going to win, and we're going to try to win by a lot. But we're not going to then put it in the face of everybody, because I think that just makes it super weird. And I think I think it's a little unnecessary. And maybe I guess maybe because we've had so much success, it's easier for me to say that, And then the worst of all of the people are people who only post their winning scores. and they don't post their losing scores. And I think that's a kind of a problem that's happening in flag football. We're going to tell you about how great we are, and then when we lose 49-0 or when we lose 30-12, we don't post that. And to me, that says what you have just announced right there to your entire team is we're not going to hold ourselves accountable. On social media, we're just going to do all the good things, and we're never going to talk about how we did bad things or how we weren't good enough. And when you don't do that, then it's that subtle message that you're sending to people that just says, hey, the bad stuff, we're not really going to talk about that. And it's one of the things I think that drives me nuts about kind of the culture as flag football has grown, that kind of what that's turned into. Fundraising, you told me to talk about. So the fundraising thing, I hate fundraisers. And the reason that I hate fundraisers is because I ask our kids to do so much. I want our kids to be at practice. I want our kids to do this. And the last thing I need is then our kids out there selling cookie dough and our kids out there doing things that so I would much rather stand in front of parents and say, hey, this is what I need. We need to do this and this and this. And if you can help and you can provide and you can donate, then that's what we want. But to me, that's way better. And from what I've learned from parents is they would much rather write you a check or give you money that they can rather than stand out there for 6 hours and run a car wash or, whatever that is, because we ask for so much time practice wise that then to go outside of that and ask for even more time, I think is a lot. And I think, as long as we can constantly avoid that, I think that's really important. We also don't ask our kids for any money ever. Well, I take that back. When you make the team, there's a small team fee, and then we try to use donations. So all the stuff that we do in the summer, we don't ask our kids for anything. So when we go to hotel rooms and we stay, we intentionally, because I'm so worried that there will be a kid that'll tell me that they can't come, but the reason that they can't come has nothing to do with flag football and nothing to do with them and their team, has nothing to do with their availability, and it has everything to do with they can't afford it. And it's a difficult conversation for an adult to have with a coach that says, hey, look, I just can't afford this. A lot of parents don't want to have that conversation, and I don't blame them. So we try to take all of that out of it. We try to take every bit of that out of it because we're going to pay for everything, and you don't have to give me any money. There's going to be a time later when I say, hey, if you've got money, we'd like you to give it to us, because this is how we do things. But we're going to try not to do hey, we're going to play in this tournament, everybody give me $30, because then there's going to be a kid that tells me I can't come. But I don't know if that's because they can't come or they can't pay the $30 to come. And so I try to take that off the table to kind of make it to where that's not going to be the reason.
Yeah. Thanks for covering that about how, it sets the conditions for like a better atmosphere, like right off the bat. This is what is expected. This is the standard. This is how we do things around here. And people that want to be a part of something like that will gravitate towards it. And it might scare away some of the people that, and I think that it scares away the right kind of the people that don't want to be a part of it. You're choosing to not be a part of this organization.
100%. We almost always host a meeting, and it's hard, at least at our school, to be walking around the hallways and not know about flag football and not know how to find me, mainly because I'm old and I've been there forever. But if we have this meeting and we start at 3:45 and we're like, okay, meeting starts at 3:45 and somebody walks in at 3:47, I'm going to be like, hey, why are we late? Because we're going to start on time. And if we're coming in and we're not in a hurry and you haven't contacted me and you're not in a situation, that's walking past a mistake. If I don't bring up that it's 3:47 and you're not where you're supposed to be, and they come out to a practice and they're 3 minutes late to practice, it was okay for the meeting. Why isn't it okay for this? Yeah. So we're over the top about trying to start on time and trying to make sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can to kind of show that this is the way that we're going to operate. And you're 100% right. Some of those kids that'll go to that meeting, I'll never hear from again. Never hear from them again, because in that they showed up 2 minutes late and they didn't like that feeling of being held accountable for kind of what they were doing. And they're like, no, I'm out. He's mean. I get that a lot. He's mean. Okay. If that's how you phrase that, then it's probably not going to go well for us, when I need you to be really good and I need you to be kind of on top of the, the standard and all that stuff. And you're probably just going to flame out later. And I'm going to put our program in a worse spot because I've let it slide up until a certain point. And we just can't have it.
Yeah, you said earlier, I want to be known as a person who's passionate, and often I get known as a person who's really intense. In the Army, we call that you're intense right up until you're toxic. And it's like that person's very intense, and then they do something inappropriate, illegal, immoral, unethical, and now they've gone past passionate and holding people accountable to what's called toxic. But we also have been lobbing that term out very easily for a little while right now. As soon as somebody tries to hold you accountable, they're like, "Oh, he's toxic," and it's not. It's absolutely not the case. Can you talk about like how you built like the coaching staff, the relationships that you had? You've nailed it with the players. You've talked about the parents. Talk about how you have surrounded yourself with this coaching staff over the years, and how those coaches gravitated towards you and said, I want to be part of this. Back to your, 100% committed. They're not at every one of those practices, but all of a sudden when they do show up, they command the respect of the people that are out there because they're out there. Your coaching staff.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Somebody asked me about this a couple of weeks ago, and I literally rattled through every coach we've ever had in the 21 years. And the interesting part of it, they've all been friends of mine, probably in one way or another, probably before they ever became coaches. So it was just Eric and I that first year. And then we had a Jill Burns was kind of an administrative assistant, sort of. She handled all the paperwork. She handled all that stuff. And she kind of stuck around for a while. But Sean Taylor, after Eric left, I brought in Sean Taylor. He was a tackle football coach, didn't know anything about flag. And we sat down, we went to Mama's Kitchen, and we just kind of worked through some stuff about defense and how I wanted him to kind of run stuff, because he wasn't really a flag guy. And that was kind of the early years. And then we kind of started getting good when a buddy of mine, the guy who played quarterback for us on the flag team that I played on, Greg Green, I said, hey, I need you to come out. My other coach isn't going to be there. I just need you to come out there and stand there and watch. I said, you understand flag football, just watch the game. And you said they gravitate towards me, and I am certain they do not. They gravitate towards the players. So he stood there and watched the thing, and he was like, man, these kids are really cool. Like this is cool. Like, this is neat. And then I said, hey, you can keep coming and you can keep coaching. So then he did. And then he had a buddy, Tim Mims, that the following year, he was just watching a lot of games, and he came to a game and he started watching the game. So then he kind of became a super fan and just showed up at all of our games. And then the next year he goes, hey, can I help out? And I go, what do you know about flag? And he's like, yeah, I know football. He grew up a Bucks fan. And so he was part of that staff. And then the cheerleading coach, a guy named Jeff Molesky, he was the cheerleading coach, and he was like, man, I really like to be involved in that. And I'm like, okay, come on. And he didn't really know anything about flag too. So then we kind of got him as well. And then Coach Volpe, his daughter was going to start playing at Robinson in 2017. So in 2015, he decided, hey, I'll be a coach now. And in that way, by the time his daughter's here, and he was one of my coaches when I played high school football. He's been now coaching at Robinson for 38 years in some capacity. And so he came on, and he was kind of doing all the scouting stuff, and he had a lot of tackle football knowledge, but and then once they're there, the kids are so awesome that they just don't want to kind of leave. And then recently, our last three coaches have all been people who have played for me, which has been super cool. Arnaldo, he played basketball. I was a coach when he played on the basketball team. So then he kind of left and came back. Kylie played for us in 2014. She was the 2014 State Player of the Year. And then she came back, and then she has been there since 2019. And then Dalia Autry. So she comes back, and then she's been there. So they all kind of came from this flag background. And I think in some of their cases, they are there certainly because of the relationships that we have built. But the kids, it's really, really tough. And then Brian Ridge is an interesting story. So he was our announcer in 2014 through 2019. He was the announcer, and he was just a friend of mine. And man, he likes to talk. And he
likes to sing happy birthday too.
Yes, he likes to tell stories, and he likes to do all kinds of things. And he kind of hams it up a little bit. And he was a fantastic announcer. And then when Tim and Jeff kind of started to do their own thing. I go, hey, you should come and coach. And he's like, I don't know anything about flag football. I go, I don't care. You're great around the kids. You're awesome to have around. He's pretty much the anti-me. Like, I'm super intense and super, and he is kind of goofy and kind of just is way more fun than anything I could ever be. And so it was good to have him, because you got a bunch of people like me, you're going to have 7 players, right? You have to have, you have people that are over the top intense players. You need people that, so he was able to connect with a whole different group of people, and he's been there since 2020. And we're still great friends, and his flag football knowledge has expanded quite a bit, so that's kind of where we are now. Sometimes our like Tim Mims is now the head coach at Warner University. They just won a national championship there. Jeff Molesky is at Weber University. Vaughn Volpe and Greg Green both assist Tim at Warner. So it's like the Robinson staff kind of went to Warner, and they were there for 3 or 4 years. And then they've created this national championship program as well, which is really cool for me to see, because it's Robinson's way, just done at the collegiate level. So that's been super, super cool. And then, and I think part of it is my intensity, passionate level kind of wears on coaches sometimes as well, because I have an expectation this is how people should be. And like I said at the beginning, like 90% of my kind of things I'm doing is flag football related. That's a little unreasonable for everybody. For them, it should be less. It should be less for everybody. So I think sometimes there might be a shelf life for my assistant coaches. Like, there's only so much of me they can take before they're like, okay, I got to go find something else to do because he's driving me nuts. So I think there's probably some give and take there as well. But it's been cool to kind of see what that coaching tree has looked like, even so much as Kylie has gone off and she's working with a couple other organizations, and she's expanding her coaching thing. Dalia playing at the national level, and she is now kind of expanding her coaching situation and running camps and training, and just it's really kind of very cool to kind of watch former players that, yes, they've come back, but then they've also found other ways to give to flag football and give back to coaching in general, because those are the kind of the ways that I feel like we've had a very positive impact on people in terms of kind of how we've coached them. And I think it's super cool when they then go coach other people, because they obviously felt something to give back. And I think that's a really neat kind of thing to do.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the future of flag football. Like, now that schools are starting to get it, it's blowing up here in Hawaii. I told you, like, as soon as we got here, it started to blow up here in Hawaii. Universities are starting to offer scholarships. Evan's going to Menlo College. They're going to have their first team. This will be the first year that they've had a college level team. And soon some of these schools, if not already, are going to start offering scholarships to girls to come play flag football at their Florida University, for example, and the national team. And so what are you most excited about as the future?
Oof. It's a lot. Yeah. So there really is, there's kind of 3 different maybe 4 different levels of how this all works. Both at the high school level. I mean, they're up to, when we first started, we won our first state title in 2014. There were 3 states that sanctioned flag football, I think, total. And now there are 23 states that are high school sanctioning flag football, with another 10 that are doing some level of pilot programming and then kind of pushing kind of that envelope to, and Nike has been awesome about that. The NFL clubs have been awesome about trying to promote kind of what that looks like. So there's that high school growth where it's just absolutely booming, and girls are getting this opportunity to play a sport, and super awesome. And then you talk about the collegiate level. And so at the collegiate level, it kind of started in 2020 at the NAIA level, and then it kind of expanded to JUCO. And it kind of made sense in both of those cases. So NAIA, they want kids in their school. They're looking for opportunities. They want players to, even if they're paying half, if you're giving them half a scholarship, that's great, because they need kind of players at the NAIA level. And then it's exploded to now, then D3 started offering, and then D2s. And now they're up to I think there's 12 to 15 Division I schools that are now offering it, including a Power 4 school in Nebraska. And they're offering scholarships, like every bit of legitimate scholarships. There are many kids that are either paying a reduced rate or literally going for free because they have a full ride to play flag football, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then there's just constant talk about who's next, what's the next school that's going to add. And then conferences, the Big 12 has announced that They expect to add flag football as a sport in the Big 12 with at least 6 schools. The SEC is monitoring it. The ACC is looking at it, and there are over 40. I've been at the University of Florida's club team for 8 years now, with 7 national championships. So they've done pretty well. But then there are now, I think back then, when we first started, there were 10 club teams maybe in the country, and now there are upwards of 50, and these are 50 Division I club teams. Florida State, Florida, outside of it, Michigan, Arizona State, like these large schools that are now really pushing club teams with the hope that maybe that will then turn into a varsity team. I don't have any idea if it's going to. People ask me, I get asked once a week if the University of Florida is going to have, and I am fairly certain that nobody in the University of Florida's athletic department has any idea who I am. They don't think they have any clue who I am, or I'm not even sure they know that the University of Florida's team is really, really good. So if I think it's got to make sense for each university from a financial standpoint, from a enrollment standpoint, and do they need it, and how many sports do they have, and you hear of some of these schools that are losing sports, and with NIL, it's kind of made money a much different kind of thing for athletic departments. And I think that it's been really kind of challenging for them. I think everybody, and if flag football, I would say flag football should be added, because flag football does everything that you would ever want a sport to do. As a sport in general, it is fairly cheap. Obviously, from a scholarship standpoint, that's still an expense. From a travel standpoint, that's an expense. But the ability to play flag football, you have an existing field that you can play on. Flags, footballs, you don't really need anything else. Everything else that you have, you already have on that campus. It is an underserved population in women in general that can easily be created. It is wildly popular and being promoted both from a big business standpoint, Nike, Under Armour, etc., as well as big business like the NFL. All of those places are that. So you have this backing of these major organizations, and it provides you with an opportunity. Like, you look at a lot of sports, and this is not to downgrade particular sports, but they are for higher socioeconomic people. Like, you don't walk out to lacrosse as a poor kid from somewhere and just start playing lacrosse. It's too expensive.
Or hockey.
As a sport at high school level. Yeah, it just costs too much. The travel teams, the whatever. Anybody can play flag football. You can just walk out there and you can. So from a socioeconomic standpoint, you are really grabbing some underserved populations. So it's checking all the boxes for why this would be a sport that you should promote in your school. It just has to kind of make sense to everybody, and they just got to kind of figure it out. And then the last 2 prongs, one is the international level. It's amazing to kind of watch and see what that has grown up to into USA football. And obviously with the Olympics in LA 2028 and flag football being an official sport, that has been super cool for me to be a part of and have the opportunity to be a part of, and just wearing USA and knowing that I'm in this organization and to be the governing body for the sport has just been, one of my, just biggest honors that I could ever possibly be a part of. So that has been very cool to see. And then watching all the international players come and play potentially college flag football has been cool to watch as well. And then when you get the opportunity to play, they've been to Finland and China, and the national team's going to go to Germany. And it's just really neat to kind of watch that expansion. And then finally, the professional ranks, which hasn't really started yet, but it's coming, because the NFL has backed this professional league sponsored, run by Tomorrow Sports, which is Tiger Woods' organization. And there's going to be a professional flag football league in some capacity, I would imagine, in 27 or 28. And because the NFL has decided it's something that's important to them, the NFL owners have said it's something that's important to them. So I think you're doing all the box checking from high school to college to international to professional. I think you're getting all of it there. And so people keep asking me, if you would have asked me 10 years ago what I thought we were capable of from the sport, I would have been so wrong, like so wildly wrong about what this would turn into. And then so now when I get asked that question, I don't want to put a cap on it, because I'm afraid I still would be wrong, because that's the level that it's growing at. And I think it's wildly awesome the number of people that the number of opportunities that that the females have in this scenario. The downside is you have a lot of people that are coming into the organ, like trying to kind of make money off of flag football and make money off of kids, which is something that's a little bit, and not providing them with anything that is tangible and something that they can use. So I kind of worry a little bit about the vultures in the scenario, which I assume happens at all new things. But so I think that's probably kind of the neatest part of all of it is just this growth has been phenomenal, and I don't know where it stops.
Yeah, I don't know where it stops, nor do I care to know that, like, where it stops, because like I think it should continue. The area that I think that I will remember the most is the relationships that we've built with the people being a part of this. Like, I can't believe we've made it this far without bringing up the Spanos, and like, and them, like, we will be friends with them forever because of the relationship that we built. So seeing Hayden go off to college, like, she will be the one that comes next in one of your coaches. She'll be like a lawyer or a doctor in Tampa, and then she'll be doing side job with you as a coach, in a few years, coaching people, if not playing for like a national or a pro type of team, right? But they will be our friends forever because of the things that we kind of gravitated towards. With every time we see them, we saw them at a tournament. I think it was in Vegas, and we made a point to hang out for an hour or two, in the hallway with their bags, getting ready to go to the airport, just so we could see each other, and because we were a part of something. The area that I kind of want to land the plane on, me and you could probably do this for 4 hours, but I don't know how many people, only the true believers are still listening.
I was going to say it might be me and you, the only ones that watch it, but yeah.
That's cool. I love it. But there are some true believers out there that'll listen if it was 6 hours. They'd still be listening no matter what, because the things that you're spitting out. Go into some of the advice that you might have, and you can go in any different direction. For coaches that are considering becoming a part of this, for players that are considering, to be a part of this, or for parents that are maybe encouraging their kids to, yes, you might be a track star, you might also play volleyball, you might play this, but it can't hurt. Even though I say this Hawaii flag football is probably the most dangerous sport I've ever seen. Like, this is, they never throw a pass interference. There's no such thing as pass interference here.
Yep.
They don't call anything on blocking. It is ruthless. And some of these girls in high school look like grown women out there just putting people down on the ground. So any advice for like Hawaii, or I know you said you were heading to Fiji and Tonga to talk about flag. And what are some of the things that kind of from an advice standpoint you're thinking about right now?
Yeah, you brought up the parents, and I think one of the really cool parts about Robinson flag football is after our state championship game this year, I watched this group of parents, and they took a picture together, and there were 15 parents we call them alumni parents. There were 15 parents of former players. Their kids weren't there. They didn't bring their kids to watch the game. Like, their kids were off at college and doing whatever, but just the parents all showed up for the state championship game, and then they all took a picture together. And it was just super cool to kind of watch and just kind of emphasize the point that you were making, where, the bond happens with the players, but it also happens with the parents, and the parents just become, super entrenched, and they hopefully appreciate kind of what is happening. So then when they get the opportunity to kind of watch and all show up at a game, and the game is cool, and the atmosphere obviously at the Bucks facility was fantastic. So it was kind of a neat thing. And it's one of those things that I still get, like, I just had lunch with Hayden, or breakfast with Hayden 2 days ago, and I'm having lunch with Tammy Jerson in a couple of days. And these are people, Hayden's at Len playing volleyball. Tammy's at Howard in DC, and she's coming down. Casey Ingram from 2021, she is like an assistant of mine that kind of helps me keep my life together, which is fantastic. And she was just a former player, and she would admit that she was not the greatest player ever, and she was a volleyball person. But it has been, wildly awesome to kind of watch all of our alumni, both the ones that play and don't play, and in the ones that are, think enough about me or just kind of the program to contact us or show up at practice or just, and there are, and I could name probably 50 of them that at some point say, hey, I just saw this, or they still have my number. And it really is a super cool thing. I think when I'm done and I have an opportunity to just kind of look back on all of it, that will probably be the thing that I will be probably most proud of, and kind of having that opportunity. Advice wise, I think, and you called out like three different areas of people that you could give advice to, and it's probably different for everybody. For the parent part of that is, man, just make them play. Just make them get out there. Just let them go out there. Don't worry about, and we get this all the time. Well, they do this, and I don't know if they can handle it. They can handle it. And one of the things, like you mentioned, the International Baccalaureate program we have at Robinson, and kind of the high academic standards that we try to have. And we get parents, incoming ninth grade parents, that will say, I don't know if my kid can play this sport or multiple sports and do the high academics. And the academics obviously have to matter. And so this is the parent saying, and obviously that's the most important thing. And so what I tell them all the time is that our players are not good at academics. They are not high academic students despite flag football. They're high academic students because of flag football. They are learning things in flag football from a time management perspective, from a making sure that they're on top of their details part that translates outside of the sport into the academic world. And yes, they will have times where they're gonna feel like they're kind of overwhelmed, but that's them working through all of it. So being part of flag football is actually helping their academics, not holding them back from it at all. So encouraging them to go do something. We often as parents really struggle in the area of, and I think this was kind of go back to that thing about the discipline thing. We're so protective of our kids and we don't want them to ever be uncomfortable. And we as parents need to teach kids to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You've never gone out there and you've never played this sport, and maybe they're a star soccer player and we're really good at soccer. So nobody ever tells them that they're bad at anything. Well, then go play flag football so you can go be bad at something for a little while and see what that learning curve looks like. And, heaven forbid you show up and it's fun. And right. So you're so used to so many of these high level athletes and other things. They're playing this club sport and they're doing whatever. And it's a job. They're going out there to win and lose. And it's a job. And sometimes, especially in high school, you just need to do things because it's fun. And you just get to do it with your friends. And it's different than the club thing because you get to wear your high school across your chest, and that has to matter. And I think that part of it can't be undersold. So to get out there and just do it, make them go out there and say, hey, yeah, you don't know anybody. And it's going to be a little weird for you. And it's going to be okay. You're going to get through it. You're going to survive it. And it'll be great. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. And what happened? You had to run around in the sun for 3 days. Okay, great. And you didn't like it. Great. Moving on. But if you never get out there because you were afraid, you're missing out on what is going to be an awesome opportunity for you, because it might be the thing that literally changes your life. Maybe not you're going to become a flag football superstar, but it literally will change kind of how you view things and how you handle things. So over the top parents to just be wildly, I would even say, don't just encourage them, force them. If they're athletic, to go do something that they aren't wildly comfortable doing. And I think that would be, and from a player perspective, I think it's easy, right? Find a way to be coachable. I think, when you got to get in there. And again, it's that thing about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like you have to, when somebody tells you you're doing something wrong, don't look for the reason why it was wrong in terms of, that was because. It doesn't matter why you were wrong. You were wrong. Now fix it. You were wrong. Do that. I just worked with a quarterback and it was kind of very refreshing. She's not a great quarterback yet, but when I said, hey, you got to get your elbow up, the next one, her elbow was way up in the air. Like she was like over the top, like, yes, I gotta get this, because she was trying to do what I had asked her to do the previous time. And then so we had moved on and we were doing something different and she forgot about the elbow. So then I'm like, hey, don't forget that elbow. She's like, oh, okay. But she's doing something that is not comfortable for her, but she is trying to make it work. And we struggle with that, as players struggle with that, because they are not used to being told that they're wrong, or they're used to being told it's okay that you're bad. Okay, it is okay that you're bad the first time and maybe even the second time. But if you're not doing anything to be less bad, then it's not okay anymore. Like, it's not okay to constantly do the same thing wrong over and over and over again. That's not okay. And sometimes we just don't ever want to say, hey, like, we're afraid of their feelings. But having hurt feelings is not a, if you always get told how great you are all the time, you're never going to get great, oddly, because everybody's telling you. You have to be told that this isn't good enough, and that has to be okay. It has to be okay, because, I'm going to get this wrong, but good enough is the enemy of great. Yeah. If somebody says that they're good enough, you're never getting to greatness, because it's not. That good enough is fine if you just want to be. My golf game's good enough. It's I'm not going to be great. You have to be told. Now, in terms of Hawaii, and
before you go on to Hawaii, one of Coach Saunderism that we still use in our family is, you said to Ryan one time when she went out and did something, you said, that was the most unathletic thing I've ever seen in my life. And we still use it. Like, if someone goes to throw a Frisbee, catch a ball, do whatever it might be, we always joke. We're like, that was the most unathletic thing I've ever seen in my life.
And it has to be okay to hear that. Like, it has to be okay. And there's a joke part in there somewhere, because obviously it's probably not the most unathletic thing I've ever seen. But being told that is like, hey, I used to tell Ryan, and she's the only one I've ever told. I wonder if she still remembers it. I used to always tell Ryan that we needed to make her a shirt. It was always about, we need to make a shirt. And so when you talk to her, ask her if she remembers the shirt I used to always tell her. Because I said, I'm going to get you a shirt that says, I should be better. And that was the shirt. And I said, you're just going to have to wear it. I should be better. Because she would do something and it just wouldn't be good enough. And I'm like, I got to get you that shirt. Do you want that shirt in blue? Do you want it in yellow? But your shirt should be, I should be better. Because, and you obviously, I don't know if your listeners know, but Ryan is an amazingly athletic looking person. And sometimes she just does things that you're like, whoa, that's the most unathletic thing I've ever seen. So, like, you should be better. So that was the thing that we used to kind of always tell her. But, interesting. And I would imagine growing up in her house, she was over the top willing to be coached about that, right? Like, me telling her that she should be better, she's probably like, yeah, I probably should be better. Right. And so it was, so that was cool. I kind of forgot about that shirt until just now. So
yeah, I can't wait. She'll listen to this, and I will maybe I'll get her a shirt that says I should be better.
I should be better.
Nobody works harder because of that. Because of like that no one works harder than she does. And I relate it back to, I remember, I think it was middle school. She wanted to play volleyball in middle school, and she could not get the ball overhand over the net, yeah. Right? And so she would always have to give it everything she had, to kind of underhand get that ball, and it would start spinning and get it over the net. That was kind of her first year. Another example was she went out for the basketball team, and the first game the coach didn't play her. When I asked, I was like, "Hey, coach, she practiced well, this." And he said, she's too small. I'm afraid she's going to get hurt out there because all the other girls are so much bigger than she was. And it was like, hey, if she gets hurt, she gets hurt. But let her rip. And she's been living with that like her whole life. And so I think she'll appreciate, I should be better. And I think she's getting to the point where she's like, am I better yet, coach?
Exactly right.
She's doing it at West Point, and she's living this life out there. She's loving it.
And I think that it's like I constantly are like, I should be better. Like, I should be better all the time. Like, if we're not doing something well, then I should be better at it. And I think it's kind of a way that just, I guess, certain people just kind of live. And it's probably not the way you should handle relationships and things like that. But, for me, it's like, it's never quite good enough. And it can be a little tough, but
go to the Hawaii.
I think,
advice for Hawaii.
So, anybody starting flag football, the hardest part about starting flag football anywhere, and it's happening in the country. So what's happening right now kind of in the country, both at the collegiate level and certainly at the high school level, is there are three areas that really struggle, three parts that really struggle with all of this. And one of them is coaching. is that you're just starting flag football, and it's happening at the collegiate level. When you start high school flag football, you're like, hey, great, we have 100 teams that are playing. Well, you didn't have 100 flag football coaches, but now you have 100 teams, so now you need 100 flag football coaches, but they don't know what they're doing, right? So finding a way to get them trained up in some form or fashion, whether it be, some sort of opportunity to like book or knowledge or whatever, having an opportunity, maybe listening to this podcast, having an opportunity for them to hear kind of what matters and what shouldn't matter and how you coach anything. So there's a coaching void kind of in the country when you start something because you create all these teams, but you don't have all these people that have coached. Then there's a quarterback problem. And that goes without saying. You started 100 teams, but nobody has played quarterback. And now all of a sudden you need 100 quarterbacks. It's really, really hard. This game is predicated on, by the way, all the games of football are predicated on how good is your quarterback. I don't care whether you're playing pee-wee football with little 7 and 8 year old boys, whether you're playing girls flag football at the high school and college level, or whether you're playing NFL professional football with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got to have a quarterback. I know you were here for the Tom Brady times, and, you were able to kind of see some of that. The quarterback changes everything. So that's a problem. But then the third part is there's a referee problem, because now you've created this game, you've added all these teams, and now you've taken these referees that have then said, okay, cool, I've never refereed this forever. And here's the rule book. Okay. But they're used to tackle football. So then they're kind of seeing all that contact, and it's been okay. And it does not surprise me one bit that you see all this, potential illegal contact that's happening with no penalties, the blocking issues with no penalties. And it's going to become a problem. So I think in all the scenarios, I think finding a way to get over the top for all these people that are starting flag football, to find a way to get coaching and quarterbacks and referees all on the same page and trying to get that as an opportunity. And there are some organizations out there like, the IFFA does a really good job of trying to kind of help with coaches. USA Football does a really good job with trying to kind of help with coaches kind of in their own way. And then there are, opportunities to reach out to coaches. Like I probably get, 2 or 3 emails a month that are like, hey, I'm a coach in, Indiana, or I'm a coach in wherever. And, any ideas about how to do this or how to do that? And so I would imagine if you sent that out to 7 or 8 coaches in the country, most of them probably don't respond because they don't know, they don't have the time. But if somebody does respond and you end up with a conversation like this, and you're able to write down 2 or 3 things, like I think anytime you go to any conference or whatever, you're not looking to take everything that any person has ever told you. But if you can grab 2 or 3 things that then you can go take back to your organization, I think that matters so much more than anything else, because you just got that much better. You just got a little bit better. And that's the goal for all of us, right? I should be better, and you're finding a way to get better in anything that you're doing. And I think that's really the most critical part of all of it.
You said earlier the 7-yard hitch. What's the 7-yard hitch on defense? What's the one thing on defense?
Oh, so if you take out pulling flags, right? If you eliminate pulling flags, I think that the 7-yard hitch on defense is the weird part. Is I'm going to talk about how the referee's not calling enough penalties, but aggression to the ball, I think, is the most important part on defense. And that doesn't necessarily mean, and it's not aggression to the other player, which I think is what we see sometimes, but it's aggression to the ball. So whether the ball is in the air and you're going to play the ball in the air, or the ball is being run and you're going to go be aggressive to where the ball carrier is. I think those are probably the two. That aggression to the ball part is probably the biggest component of anything, because what we've done, what a lot of people have done, is we've kind of taught girls that we're not going to touch. We're not going to be physical. We're not going to be aggressive. We're not going to do that. And in reality, we should be doing that. We should be doing that in any life, in any kind of thing. We should be okay with being aggressive about things that we want to do, including going to get the ball carrier or going to play the ball in the air, or being aggressive about things that we want, like more opportunities for flag football. I think being aggressive in general is probably a good answer.
Yeah, I love it, because it's everything in life. If you be more aggressive, if you just do it, Nike, right? If you just get out there and start pulling flags, pulling flags is like get out there and exercise, do PT. How do you stay so healthy? I thought about this. You are always healthy. I've never seen you eat. I've never seen you work out. And Lord knows you've probably never slept. Like, how are you staying so healthy?
Well, you brought up the Spanos, so I'm gonna bring up the Spanos. The Spanos were wildly impactful for kind of, because I have a tendency to forget to eat, like when we do all these tournaments and stuff. And the Spanos were over the top. Jamie was over the top about kind of creating we would have all these, the food for the kids and all that stuff, but she would bring me my own like cooler. Like it would be a cooler for the coaches. So it had the water with the electrolytes and all that stuff because she was always afraid that I just wasn't going to eat. And I was,
Which is true. You wouldn't.
Yeah. No, 100%, 100%. So then they had like, basically it was just like a built-in AED machine, I think, that where they were just going to, if I passed out, they were just going to make it work. And that probably started before the Spanos. I remember Macy McClintock's mom, Maggie, and she was over the top about making sure, she was like, you're going to die out here. And oddly, from a workout perspective, I've started to figure out the kind of how my timing works. My biggest issue with working out is if I try to work out in the afternoon, something always gets in the way. You always get torn up, whatever. So Kylie, our assistant, because she has been fantastic. So during school, we work out every morning, Monday through Thursday, 5:30 a.m. And she is kind of my personal trainer. And it's been going on for like a year. I think it'll be a year, like July 1st. I started because her and Dalia were doing these early morning workouts. And I was like, can I go? Because I'm fat. And, I feel like I'm in such a better place now, both physically, like I'm probably in better shape. I still have this little gut thing, which is weird because I don't drink, but I'm more, because I hate to run. I hate running so much. And so but those two and Monosby, they kind of were doing this workout thing, and I asked if I could join, and so then now it's just kind of become a thing, and so 5:30 in the morning is generally, it pushed a little later in the summer because I don't have to be at school so early, but that's kind of how I've gotten to the workout part. Sleeping, yeah, it's not great. But I try to make sure that I'm getting 6 hours. Hopefully, it just becomes. I got a Whoop, so this little device right here, which I think it tracks everything I'm doing, and it for me it's weird because it's like a competition. So like you could be in the red, you could be in the yellow, or you can be in the green, and if you're not taking care of yourself, or you're eating too late, or you're doing whatever, then your sleep score is not good. So then I end up in the red, and I'm like, I can't be in the red. Like it's a competition piece for me to try to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, and this keeps score. So anything that kind of keeps score for me is something that I'm going to be way more invested in than how I feel. I don't care about how I feel. I care about what my score is. So this has been an opportunity. I think it's been the best $240 I've ever spent in my life, and it's been great. I thank Kylie often about just kind of keeping me a little healthier and just making me a little more active. And I just turned 50, and I'm probably in way better shape than any time I was in my 40s.
Yeah. I think what I hear you, the way you described that is the same way you kind of described everything. It's in such a common sense approach, like doing the little things, doing the standard, giving yourself something to be competitive about, and all of a sudden now I want to get more hours of sleep. How do I know you don't sleep? Because when I texted you yesterday, it was probably past midnight, because that's what time it is out here in Hawaii. And yet you're still responding to my text messages, back there in Tampa and on the East Coast. It's such a common sense approach to your coaching. It's such a common sense approach to getting back to being healthy, to setting a good example, to holding people accountable. I love the way you're just right to the point. I don't understand how you don't know what needs to be done here. I appreciate it because, I've been learning from you for so many years now. That's why I still call you Coach.
Well, I think that the cool part for me is that, I kind of learned that if I'm not learning something from people, and people wonder why, I recently, somebody had mentioned that we weren't invited to do something as a team, to be a kind of part of a league. And it wasn't a big deal. I don't think we would have played anyway, but we weren't invited to do something. And the person, it kind of came up in the lines and said, well, we're just trying to close the gap between you and everybody else. So that's why you're not in this league, because, you're either better than all of us or we're trying to close the gap. And I kind of paused at that a little bit. And one of the things I think is really important is I run the Florida Athletic Coaches Association, and we try to for the flag football side, obviously, and we try to kind of create opportunities. And having conversations like these and other coaches that have reached out and training other teams' quarterbacks and things like that. Like, I don't think it's my job to try to. I think it's my job to try to help other teams close the gap between us and them. And then I think it's also my job to then work so hard with my team that I don't allow that gap to be closed. So in other words, like kind of the rising tide lifts all boats, that kind of idea, so like if we can make everybody better, if I can make other teams better, does that hurt us in the long run? Maybe. But I think the short-sighted answer to that would be yes, it hurts us because other teams are better and we may not win as much. But really the long-term answer is no, it doesn't hurt us. It helps us because it pushes us to try to be better. And it pushes us to say, hey, we've got to get better. It's like, just like that state championship game we were talking about. We gave up 34 points. And the motivating factor for me is we gave up 34 points, man. We can't do that ever again. Like, we have to be better. We have to find a way to get better. And these teams are all getting better. So we need to get better as well. And I think I want other teams to try to close the gap, and I'm going to help other teams try to close the gap. But then I'm also on the flip side, when we're practicing tomorrow night, for the first time, we're going to try to widen that gap and try to make our team, kind of push themselves so that they can absolutely be better.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you spending so much time with me today. You haven't budged. It's been, over 2.5 hours, and you haven't budged. You haven't moved. I think I saw you take a couple sips of water. There's probably someone there handing it to you, said like, hydrate, going forward. And I do know you would keep doing this, and you do respond to my text messages and such. And I do learn from just watching you kind of operate. Was there anything that you had hoped, any questions that you hoped I would have asked, or any areas that you wish we would have kind of dabbled a little bit more in today?
No, I think you, it's a pretty extensive plan, I think. And I actually appreciate all the Ryan stories and the ways to kind of the reminiscing in the past and kind of looking at what kind of all that kind of looked like and all the impact that it's potentially had on all of our other players. I think it's been super awesome. Now I'll get off of here and probably, because I'll replay how I could have done this better, because that's kind of what I do. So I might think of like 3 things after I'm done, like, oh, I should have said that, but if I forget something, then that will just have the people out there just wanting to hear more. So yeah, that'll be cool.
And how are some of the places, like, what are some of the things that if someone's like looking to learn a little bit more about flag football, or they're looking to learn a little bit more about Robinson? I know there's like Instagram and social media and stuff like that, but what are some of the resources or something like that you think people should look out for?
Yeah. So I think, in terms of just anybody that wants to talk flag football, I'm certainly able to kind of talk about it. My Instagram's Coach Saunders flag. I think there's an underscore in there somewhere. Maybe it's Coach Saunders _ flag. I really don't know. But I think that and Robinson flag football is certainly our Instagram thing. And, and I don't know that I'm allowed to talk about it, but there's going to be a book that's going to come out at some point about flag football that myself and Matt Hernandez kind of worked on. And so, but that's probably a couple of months down the road. But I think there is opportunity out there for anybody that wants to kind of be involved in the flag football space. And I think that it's a growing space. And I think if it's being done right, then I think there's the opportunity for growth is pretty intense. And I think that opportunity to really kind of give back to the players and to the females and to kind of coaching in general. I think it's also a very interesting thing is coming from the guys side, coming from the tackle football, boys basketball side, which is where I kind of lived my entire kind of life when I was doing all of that. I think the neat part is once I started coaching the girls at the high school level, I realized it was so much more fun, like literally so much more fun. And I think what happens is there's a lot of that, kind of tackle football people that think, oh, I have to do this because tackle football is king. And it might be, but I think there is so much value in providing this opportunity for females and just kind of seeing kind of what that growth can be. I think it has been, for me, it certainly has been life-changing. I think it's, and then I'm hoping just to kind of hopefully provide those quality experiences for other people. And I think that's been super neat.
It definitely has. Evan walked off of her about halfway through the season here, Leilahua High School, playing flag football. I haven't seen her show this level of emotion ever. Like in volleyball, she shows a ton of emotion, right? But like in flag, there was tears. They came off and in the playoffs, and she wanted to win so bad. And she said nothing will ever be like Robinson. Nothing will ever be like this. But she tried to bring that to to this team, and and I remember you saying like whatever team she's on,
it ain't gonna be the same.
It won't be the same. But she was out there catching balls, getting pounded, going over the middle, getting clobbered, going up to defend balls, and
no flag though. No.
It made her a lot more aggressive. Her volleyball coach said, I want to thank flag football for making Evan more aggressive,
I love it.
In volleyball. And so me and Christy said also like, that being a part of that program as a parent to, your kids are going to spend so much time outside of the house away from them, away from you as a parent in high school. So to get them to be a part of that, something like that, really, we were so fortunate to have our kids be a part of it. And our promise to you is that we're trying to create that in everywhere we go and kind of share that as the standard. I think it truly is the standard and a standard to be followed. And I'm trying to replicate it kind of out here in the Army. So I really appreciate you doing this with me here today, Coach.
No, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, I love talking flag football, and then combining it with all the other stuff it's been neat.
Yeah, I'm at your disposal. Anything I can ever do for you or, out here in Hawaii, hopefully I'm one of those alum that you can count on.
I love it. It was that thing that I'm doing it's U.S. Department of State, actually. It is the Fiji Tonga thing. Mm-hmm. It's the U.S. Department of State. They're sending a sports envoy to Fiji and Tonga to kind of teach flag football. So that's so there's a couple of USA football coaches that are kind of going out there. But so what are you doing now?
So what I do right now is I run what's called the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center out here in the Pacific. And what we do is we create like these training exercises that involve the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, our partners, and we do it all throughout the region to simulate like a war, to simulate these battles. And we get to train leaders on how would they operate in that kind of environment. We make it as real as you can imagine, like Hollywood, like Disney World, everything from explosions going off to real scenarios that they can then use to make their plans. We do it across the Pacific, from Hawaii to Alaska to the Philippines. I just came home from the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, Thailand, Taiwan. You name it, we go there and we do these things. Our biggest one is in Hawaii, and our second biggest is in Alaska, and then the third biggest is in the Philippines. That's based on prioritization on how we do it. I'm overall responsible for kind of planning those, executing those, getting everybody kind of driving it. There's 4 of these that happen in the Army. Somebody else runs the one at the National Training Center just outside of Las Vegas called NTC. That's for like tanks in the desert. We do it in Louisiana at the Joint Readiness Training Center down there. Somebody runs that one. And then we have one in Europe, that theater for our partners and our allies and our NATO allies that are over there and the units that are over there in Europe. That's what I do. I'll be doing something similar to that for the next few years, either in the Army or outside the Army, but that is my mission. That's my flag football. I love doing it. I love being a part of it, specifically the leadership development side, which is help build future leaders and help them with the standard, understand what's the standard. Because the one thing we do know about war is that nobody's going to predict how it's going to go, and nobody can predict where it's going to be and how it's going to kind of be executed. But if you train to the standard, you'll be able to operate a little bit better in that environment. So that's my flag football out here.
Oh, I love it. That is super neat. So, but you're staying in Hawaii.
I will stay in Hawaii. Me and Christy will live here. It's the fountain of youth. It's helped. It's helped with my health. So, like, if you we plan to live closer to the airport. So like if you ever come through or you stay here for a day, I would be disappointed if you didn't like let us come find you.
I love it. I love it. I just got to figure out how to get there. That's the whole key. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's an event, there's an Under Armour event out there, and my assistant coach on the U.S. team, she canceled and couldn't go, and she recommended that I go. But I think they're actually trying to get, I think they wanted all female coaches, so they were like, yeah, no, we're good. And I was like, oh man, because that would have been cool. That would have been July 4th, I think, July 4th weekend. So that would have been kind of a neat thing to do. So, it's been cool. The amount of things that I don't travel anymore, like for fun. It's all work travel, but it's flag football, so it's kind of all fun, and it's just this. But I end up popping in places for like 3 days and then out, and like I'm supposed to I go to LA for like 4 days coming up, and then I'm in Indianapolis, I think, at the end of July. And then obviously the Fiji thing is going to be cool. So it's just all super neat, all very neat. And yes, absolutely. You're definitely one of my people. And it's and I love it. We post something and then you're right there. You're right there with commenting on it. It's great. I'm just trying not to crash the ship I'm trying not to drive the Titanic into the iceberg. I just need to keep the thing afloat.
Yeah, well, she's doing a great job, because that's how I keep up with you guys, and I keep up with you, and I keep up with the team. I'll never forget the trivia night, one of the trivia nights in between the game, and they said, who's the most popular wrestler to ever graduate from Robinson High? And I knew the answer to it, because he's my favorite of all. Hulk Hogan graduated from, God rest his soul, he lived close by, and he graduated from Robinson High back in the day.
For sure, yeah, 100%. He's probably the most famous person that has ever gone to Robinson, much less wrestler. I don't know. I don't know that anybody else is more famous than he is.
Yeah.
But no, that's awesome. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
And being so excited about it too. I think that's what kind of did it for me. You're really pumped about this being a thing, and I'm like, nobody's ever this excited to talk to me. I know when I talk to my players, they're not this excited to talk to me. So I appreciate having your energy the entire time.
Yeah, because I see it, Coach. Like I feel like I've been doing leadership, and I've been doing, coaching, and I've been doing the standard in the Army for long enough to know when someone's doing it right, when their heart's in the right place. I can tell. I feel like I can see it when the actions, the way you stack those bags. Like that was exactly me growing up in the Army. Like it, and you had to have your socks in the same place on your rucksack. You always had your poncho in the center. You had two pairs of socks and your foot powder, and it was always in that place in your rucksack. And I was just talking with somebody yesterday, and he's like, yeah, because that way, when you go back to the patrol base, if it starts raining, one person can take everybody's poncho out because it's in the exact same place in their ruck, and cover their rucksack with the poncho, and they can go back and grab your socks and your foot powder to bring it back to you, because everybody's stuff is in the exact same place in their rucksack, and it left nothing to chance whatsoever. And so I gravitated towards it when I hear it. That's why it fires me up so much. You're the man. Hey, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you again soon, Coach. Thank you.
All right, man. See you.
Bye. Well, that was the episode with Coach Saunders. 2 hours and 40 minutes is what we talked about. If you made it this far, with Coach Saunders, you are absolutely a true believer. I'm not going to cut out too much of what he just said, because I'm not trying to get this episode down to a short period of time. What an amazing conversation with Coach. For those that are out there that do want a little bit of some of the raw material and stuff, hit me up. I'm not hard to find. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts, and better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes, and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Dangerous times, don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.